We'll also give a bit of a background of these president and premier, their political career. So if you have questions later, we'll reserve them for the experts. And then we have, of course, Miss Pia Morato and Dr. Arlene Marasigan, our education experts. As you know, China is also one of our Asian leaders in education. So we'll see if we can explore a cooperation also on the education and people to people. And then we have Ira Pozon, attorney Ira Pozon, our tech expert who studied in the UK, National University of Singapore, and also in China, Fudan, right? Or Fujian University. So also an advisor to ARTA. He was instrumental in getting the ARTA anti-red tape bill. So a lot of our government processes have improved a lot thanks to that ARTA bill. So you can ask him questions also. He's also retired from the ARTA, so he has many chismis. Retired, right? Yeah, early retirement. uh, yeah, so he'll talk about on the technology because we expect China, as you know, will play leadership role in technology developments, not only in Asia, but in the world. We're also on Zoom for friends who are online. Thanks for joining us. By the way, there's coffee and some merienda in the back. Please help yourselves, and then we'll have lunch around 12:30 when the press con and then reactions from our experts are completed. The merienda, please help yourselves. Okay. Coffee and merienda, please help yourselves. Wi-Fi password. Can we lend some password to our young gentleman in the corner? We have Kamentong. We are the think tank. If you want the hard-hitting quotes, you get it from Kamentong. Yeah. If you want the diplomatic quotes, you get it from Kalito Gagni. Yeah. So you can have a buffet of quotes and insights here from the hard-hitting to the diplomatic and to the economic, political.
Before we go, just look around me. You see the cameramen already standing on their ladders trying to get the best position for the first debut of the Chinese Premier Li Qiang, who will come out and meet the press in few minutes.
Yeah, quite a few issues to be addressed there. We're just moments away from that news conference by China's new Premier Li Qiang. Thank you so much, Tian Wei, for bringing us that. And that, of course, is one of the most anticipated events at every year's two sessions.
That's right, and CGTN will bring you live coverage on that. Now, at the just concluded first plenary session of the NPC, Chinese President Xi Jinping also stressed the importance of pushing forward high-quality development.
On the new journey toward such goals, we should unswervingly uphold high-quality development. We should apply new development philosophy in full and the right way and in all fields of endeavor. Speed up to foster a new development paradigm and further implement the strategy of developing the country through science and education, and the strategy of strengthening the country through talents, and also promote innovation-driven development. And we should also enhance science and technology, self-reliance and strengths, promote industrial transformation and upgrading, advance urban, rural, and regional coordinated development, and to see that the economic and social development in a green and low carbon manner. And we should also to realize that our economy achieve the effective increase in quality and reasonable growth in its
Everyone, can we please lower the
by doing so, we can keep increasing our country in terms of economic and technological strength and
focus on the press con.
competent
Thank
commercial
you.
strengths.
China's high-speed rail network is a symbol of its drive to modernization. Over 20 provinces in the country are linked in a network of more than 10,000 kilometers. Richard Enter takes a ride on board link between Beijing and Shanghai on one of the world's fastest trains.
Crowds of people gather at Beijing Nan Station in the city's south. Wow, I told you this place was ultra modern. I'm running a bit late, but I'm not worried because I see a sea of people, and I know that in the peak of its season, the Chinese New Year, for example, over 3.6 million people departed from this very station efficiently. It was launched in 2008, early August, and it still looks brand new. Let's take a look at where my fellow passengers are departing from. Streams of people effortlessly pass through the station thanks to the use of modern technology, scanners, AI, and facial recognition. I gotta get to Shanghai, 1,300 kilometers away, but I'll be fine. 350 kilometers at its maximum speed. I get to Shanghai in just 4.5 hours. Now, I've never been on a spaceship and I've never been teleported before, but this has got to be the closest thing. This bad boy takes you straight to the city center. So why do people in China prefer traveling by high-speed rail?
We think high-speed rail is much safer than airplanes. There's also the convenience. Assuming you are flying, then you may need to consider whether there will be traffic jams from your home to the airport.
Our country's high-speed railway is safe, fast and convenient and comfortable. So we like it better.
Staring out the windows is like having courtside seats to visuals of China that a camera just cannot do justice to. Inside the cabin, I see complex technological features made simple. And there's an overwhelming sense of comfortability that jumps right at you. In the seating arrangements, for instance, built for relaxation, even for a 6'2" guy such as myself, it's comfortable, it's spacious, and it's neat. Speaking of comfort, it's a smooth ride all the way, even as the train exceeds 300 kilometers per hour. Well, there you have it, dependable and reliable. 4.5 hours later, we arrive in Shanghai from Beijing. This is just one line in a national speed network that has brought greater prosperity and mobility for the public. As they say in China, Zhaijian. Richard and Ta, CGTN, Shanghai.
Just an informal survey. How many have been to China? So about half. How many have taken the Shanghai high-speed train? So we have CGT and friends. Maybe we can sponsor some of our friends for. I took the Beijing to Shanghai. Just a backgrounder. So if I take the plane, it's about 2 hours, right? Beijing to Shanghai. But I need to go to the airport 2 hours or 3 hours ahead. So it's about 5 hours. But if I take the high-speed train from Beijing to Shanghai, I just buy the ticket and take the high-speed train. So from how long is the high-speed train? Yellow or Gretchen? 4 hours, right? So I buy the ticket, take the 4 hours. I can do my work. It's like basically a office chair and small table. And you just buy. And you know what's interesting for some of the older ones, many of our friends here are young. You know, the Beijing Shanghai high speed was built the same time that we were talking about the North Rail, 2008. So they finished around 2011, and that's the time when we canceled our North Rail, which would have ferried 100,000 Manileños from Manila to the northern provinces. But unfortunately, we canceled that. Beijing, Shanghai is the most profitable. And China, Beijing received a lot of, because of the airlines and the airline industry was against. There's a, you know, it takes the business of the airline industry, but because Beijing wants to make the people, empower the people, they got the Beijing Shanghai high-speed rail. There's also the Shanghai maglev train. So it's running on magnet. Wala siyang gulong, there's no wheels. And before, from Shanghai airport to the Shanghai city proper, it takes about an hour. Now with this maglev train, it's about 10-15 minutes. So it's amazing experience. Is this Beijing internet problem or ours? Yellow? It's stopped. We can 7 minutes for the press con. Okay. Okay, it's there. Yeah. Just to, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Austin Ong. I'm representing Philippines-China Friendship Club, which is a club founded by Filipinos who are studying in China. Some of them are here. Rofel, who's Ilonggo, but lived in China for over 10 years. He manages the top European restaurants there. We have Dr. Arlene Marasigan, who got her PhD in China, and she advocates comparative education. She's now a professor administrator in Philippine Normal University. And then we have attorney Ira Pozon, who studied in Fujian University, China Studies, right? China Studies, Integrated Development Studies Institute, which is a Manila-based think tank. So our experts are coming from, many of them are from the network of IDSI. Of course, we have Asia Century, our partner think tank as well. We have a very active and fast-growing bloggers, and hopefully we can connect with our mainstream and new media on a regular basis. Can you stop share? I'll just share a bit about IDSI or IDSI and what we do as a think tank.
That China needs to stay grounded.
IDSI also does training. We work with TI, NEDA, and many of the business and export organizations. Sometimes we're also invited by the DFA, the DMP, or our media friends who are here. Okay, thank you. We'll go back to the press con happening in Beijing.
In the sense that all regions in China, for example, people in all walks of life and all kinds of industries, etc., need to being further pushed toward a higher level of development or high quality development, as has been again and again emphasized in this year's NPC session. Now, from now on to, let's say, 2030, I think it will be more crucial, because I truly believe by 2030, the Chinese economy, in terms of its size on the national level, will surpass that of the United States and will become the largest economy in the world if we still use the official exchange rate as the benchmark. Now, from 2030 to 2035, I think the whole Chinese economy will be further beefed up.
Professor in one of the top universities. We can get you his profile, but you can also quote him directly, Victor Gao, GAO.
You can see that the Chinese economy is already on the cutting edge in many respects. For example, in terms of the production of iron and steel, cement, concrete, car making, for example, ship making, etc. And then China is also pushing very much aggressively into, let's say, space technologies, you name it. By 2035, I think China will be very much in the cutting edge almost of all the industries and all subjects of science and technology that we understand, laying a very solid foundation for the final push between 2035 all the way to around 2050. By 2050, I think our future generations in China will really be very proud Chinese nationals. And when they look at the rest of the world, it is very much integrated, because a much larger, a much more impactful China will be more integrated with the rest of the world. In that sense, as Mr. Brown comes from CCG, Center for China and Globalization, China will be increasingly a more forceful pillar and a push for greater forms of globalization. So it's generating huge benefits for mankind as a whole.
Let's also put things into a global perspective, Mr. Brahm. President Xi Jinping mentioned multilateralism, and China's development should not be looked at independently from the rest of the international community. He mentioned common prosperity and shared value and reform and upgrading the global governance system. What are your expectations going forward? What kind of role can China play in this regard?
Well, you really have now a bifurcated world system. You have increasing protectionism across the world. You have now even sanctions being issued against countries, political unilateralism from one country to another. And what you have now is you're going to have two very different parallel systems operating on this planet. So when we talk about globalization, in the post-COVID era, we have witnessed deglobalization. Now we're going to see a new type of global integration depending on the region. So you're going to have the United States, North America, and some of Europe.
Mr.
as
Brahm,
one group.
let's come back to you later. Chinese Premier Li Qiang is now taking questions from domestic and foreign journalists. Let's listen in. And this is his first news conference in his capacity as the Premier of the State Council.
各位媒体朋友、女士们、先生们，大家上午好。
Ladies and gentlemen, friends from the media, good morning.
14届全国人大一次会议刚刚举行了闭幕会议。今天，我们非常荣幸地邀请到了国务院总理李强和各位副总理与大家见面，并请李总理回答大家的提问。有请李总理。
The first session of the 14th National People's Congress just closed. We are privileged to invite Premier of the State Council Li Qiang and the Vice Premiers to meet with the press and invite Premier Li to answer your questions. And I'll give the floor to the Premier.
大家好，很高兴啊，今天能够与各位媒体朋友、各位记者在这里见面交流。首先，我要感谢大家为报道这一次中国两会所付出的辛劳。
Good morning. I am happy to meet with the press today. I want to first of all thank you for your hard work in covering the two sessions.
我们衷心感谢党和人民的信任，也深知肩负的责任重大、使命光荣。
We thank the party and the people for their trust, and we're deeply aware of the important responsibilities and the glorious mission upon our shoulders.
我们一定在以习近平同志为核心的党中央坚强领导下，紧紧依靠广大人民，以奋发有为的精神状态和时时放心不下的责任意识，忠实履行宪法和法律赋予的职责，勇毅前行，廉洁奉公，鞠躬尽瘁，不辱使命。
We will follow the strong leadership of the CPC Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, rely closely on our people, and faithfully perform the duties entrusted by the Constitution and laws with an enterprising spirit and a strong sense of responsibility. We will press ahead with grit, stay honest and upright, exert our utmost, and live up to our mission.
下面就请各位记者提问吧。
I'm now ready to take your questions.
好，非常感谢李总理。下面开始提问。
请中区第3排第一位男士提问，谢谢。
谢谢主持人，总理您好，中央广播电视总台记者提问。首先也要向您和4位副总理履新表示祝贺。新一届政府的任期未来5年，对于全面建设社会主义现代化国家来说是开局起步的关键时期，所以国内外非常关注新一届政府的工作。我的问题是，新一届政府的施政目标是什么？有哪些工作重点？将会怎样来开展工作？谢谢。
China Central Television. First of all, congratulations to you, Mr. Premier, and the 4 Vice Premiers. The coming 5 years will be crucial for getting our efforts to build a modern socialist country in all respects off to a good start. People, both at home and abroad, are following closely the work of the new government. So my question is, what are the goals and priorities of the new government? How will the government carry out its work?
谢谢你的祝贺，也感谢大家对我们新一届政府工作的关心。
Thank you for your congratulations, and I also want to thank you for your interest in the work of the new government.
去年10月份召开的党的20大，对我们国家今后5年和更长时间的发展做了全面的战略部署。应该说，大家比较关心的重大问题，都能在20大的报告当中找到清晰的答案。
The 20th National Congress of the Communist Party of China last year laid out a comprehensive and a strategic plan for the country's development in the next 5 years and beyond. For most of the important issues that are of interest to the people, the 20th Party Congress report has provided clear answers.
新一届政府的工作就是要把党中央的决策部署贯彻好、落实好，把20大破画的宏伟蓝图变成施工图，与全国人民一道，一步一个脚印的把施工图、宏伟蓝图变成美好的现实。
The task of the new government is to implement and deliver on the important decisions and plans laid out by the party's Central Committee. Turn the inspiring blueprint drawn up at the 20th Party Congress into an implementation scheme, and work with our people to step by step turn this blueprint into a beautiful reality.
在具体工作中，我们可能要重点把握的是这么几个方面。第一，要牢固树立以人民为中心的发展思想。
In carrying out our work, we will focus on the following priorities. The first priority is we will firmly establish a people-centered development approach.
说到底，党和政府的一切工作宗旨就是为民造福。习总书记说：“人民对美好生活的向往，就是我们的奋斗目标。我们一定会始终牢记‘人民政府’前面‘人民’这2个字，扎扎实实的办好每一件民生实事。”
The ultimate aim of the work of the party and the government is to improve the well-being of the people. As General Secretary Xi Jinping pointed out, people's aspiration for a better life is our goal. We will always bear in mind this is a people's government, and we will make solid efforts on every piece of work concerning people's livelihood.
客观地说，绝大部分老百姓不会天天盯牢看这个 GDP 到底增加了多少，大家更在乎的、更关心的，一定是自己身边的具体事，像住房、就业、收入、教育、医疗、生态环境等等。政府工作就是要贴近老百姓的实际感受，去谋划、去推进，要真正做到民有所盼，政有所为。
Honestly speaking, most people do not keep their eyes on GDP growth all the time. What they care more about are the things that happen in their everyday life, like housing, employment, income, education, medical services, and the environment. Therefore, the government must always plan and carry out its work in light of what the people feel, and act according to people's wish.
第二，要集中力量推动高质量发展。大家已经注意到了，这一次习近平总书记在参加江苏代表团审议的时候，特别强调要牢牢把握高质量发展这个首要任务。
Second, we will focus our efforts on promoting high quality high-quality development.
确实，我们国家的经济社会发展已经取得了巨大成就。我们的经济总量现在是稳居世界第2，但是发展不平衡、不充分。我们任何一个总量指标要分摊到14亿这个人口基数上，人均水平还都是比较有限的。
Indeed, China has made great progress in economic and social development. We are now the second largest economy in the world. That said, China's development is still imbalanced and inadequate. Any aggregate volume, when divided by the 1.4 billion population, will become a small per capita figure.
现在我们的发展更多的只是解决有没有的问题，下步我们会更加关注解决好不好问题，特别是如何进一步提高我们的科技创新能力，加快建设现代化市场体系，推动发展方式的绿色转型等等吧。
Currently, our development is focused on providing for people's basic needs, and going forward, the focus will be shifted towards delivering a life of better quality for the people. In particular, we will enhance our capacity in science, technology, and innovation, accelerate the building of a modern market system, and transition toward green development.
总的来讲，我们还是要在3句话上下功夫。 完整、准确、全面地贯彻新发展理念，加快构建新发展格局，着力推进高质量发展。这3句话，我们还要再下功夫。
All in all, we will make greater efforts to fully and faithfully apply the new development philosophy on all fronts, move faster to create a new pattern for development, and concentrate our efforts on promoting high-quality development.
第3，坚定不移深化改革开放。
Third priority, we will remain steadfast in deepening reform and opening up.
我们常说，改革开放是决定当代中国命运的关键一招。在下一步推进中国式现代化，在实现第2个100年奋斗目标的历史过程当中，我认为我们还必须吃改革饭，走开放路。
As we often say, reform and opening up is a crucial move that has made China what it is today. In the historical process of advancing Chinese modernization and realizing the second centenary goal, we must continue to firmly pursue the path of reform and opening up.
我们要坚持社会主义市场经济的改革取向，要坚持高水平对外开放，要通过深化改革开放来不断地增强我们国家发展的动力和活力。
We will keep to the direction of socialist market economy reform, promote higher-level opening up, and inject stronger vitality into China's development by deepening reform.
谢谢。
Thank you.
请继续提问。
请中区第2排左起第3位 CNBC 郑一伦。
Thank you. From CNBC. Premier Li, this year marks the first since the peak of COVID in China, and many expect the economy to rebound in the near term. What policies will China enact to achieve its full-year growth target? What drivers of growth and drags on the economy does China expect in the year ahead and in the next 5 years? What kinds of policies does China plan to pursue in the next 5 years to support sustainable high-quality growth? And finally, how effective have policies been in the last few years in reducing debt, disorderly expansion of capital, and other systemic risks in China? Thank you.
美国消费者新闻与商业频道，今年是中国疫情过风后的第1年，许多人预期经济将在短期内反弹。中国准备采取怎样的措施来实现全年的经济增长目标？中国经济在今年及接下来的5年将面临哪些有利和不利的因素？未来5年，中国计划采取什么样的政策 来支持可持续高质量增长。近几年，中国在应对债务、资本无序扩张等系统性风险方面的政策取得了哪些成效？
这位记者朋友，很会抓机会，他这个一口气，我刚才记了一下，是4个问题6个方面的内容。时间关系，对不起，我只能摘要的做些回答。
I see our journalist has really made the most of the opportunity of asking the question. I counted 4 questions on 6 subjects, but due to time limit, I can only briefly answer your questions.
确实啊，今年世界经济形势不容乐观，不确定、不稳定、难以预料的因素还很多，而且有时候还会出现一些偶发的问题。如何稳增长，恐怕不仅是对我们中国，对世界各地都是一个现实的考验。
Indeed, the prospect of the global economy this year is not optimistic. We see many factors of uncertainty and instability, and also unpredictable factors. And sometimes there will also be unexpected incidents. Stabilizing economic growth is a challenging task, not just for China, but for all countries in the world.
今年我们中国的经济增长的预期目标啊，现在定5%左右，这是综合考虑了各方面的因素以后确定的。当然，现在我们经济总量大了，我们总量已经过了120万亿，而且现在新的挑战也不少。在这种高基数上，要达到这么一个5%左右的增长目标，恐怕也不是件容易的事，需要我们倍加努力。
This year, we have set the GDP growth target at around 5%, which is based on consideration of various factors. Currently, China's total economic output has already exceeded 120 trillion RMB yuan. We also face quite a number of new challenges, so to achieve around 5% growth on such a high base figure is not an easy task, and it would require redoubled efforts.
有关经济发展的一些具体政策部署，实际上在去年召开的中央经济工作会上已经做了全面的部署。
As for the specific economic policies, the Central Economic Work Conference last year already laid out a comprehensive plan.
基本取向是坚持稳字当头、稳中取进，要推动整个经济运行整体向好，经济运行的整体向好。
Basically, we will keep to the general principles of prioritizing stability and seeking progress while maintaining stability, and we will push for a turnaround in overall economic performance.
说为稳，最重要的还是稳增长、稳物价、稳就业。说为进，关键就是要在推动高质量发展上有新的进步。
On stability, the emphasis will be placed on ensuring stable growth, stable prices, and stable jobs. On progress, the key will be making progress on high-quality development.
具体工作当中，恐怕有这么几件事是我们下步重点考虑的，或者说要打好这么几套组合拳。
As for our specific work going forward, we will introduce a number of policy combinations.
第一，要打好宏观政策的组合拳；第二，要打好扩大需求的组合拳，包括内需、外需、投资；第三，要打好改革创新的组合拳，包括制度创新、科技创新、产业创新等等；第四，要打好防范化解风险的组合拳。
We will introduce policy combinations, including the following aspects: combination of macro policies, combination policies for expanding demand, both domestic and external demand, and also investment, policies for advancing reform and innovation, including institutional innovation, innovation in science, technology, and industrial innovation, and also a combination of policies for preventing and diffusing risks.
这些组合拳每一套都有非常丰富的具体内涵，时间关系我不展开来说了。我们还会根据实践的需要，不断的充实、调整、优化这些组合拳的具体内容。
These policy combinations will all be supported by concrete implementing steps. Due to the interest of time, I will not elaborate on them, but we will enrich, adjust, and improve these policy combinations in the course of implementation.
刚才这位记者朋友还问到，中国在经济发展当中有哪一些有利条件和不利因素吧，还是困难啊？确实。我们中国经济发展首先是有很多有利条件。
Our journalist also asked about the drivers and drags on the Chinese economy. Indeed, China's economic development is supported by quite a number of advantages.
比如我们的市场规模巨大，不可替代性；我们的产业体系完备；我们的人力资源丰富。我们的发展基础很厚实，特别重要的是，我们国家制度优势显著。
For example, we have a supersized market, which is irreplaceable. We have a well-functioning industrial system. We have rich supply of human resources. We have a strong development foundation. But most importantly, we have notable institutional strength.
讲到困难，实际上大家都有困难。我们今年中国的困难也会不少，但是静下心想一想，我们哪个时候、哪一年没有碰到困难？我们从来是在不断克服困难当中实现新的发展，创造新的奇迹的。
Talk about drags on the Chinese economy or difficulties. I think all countries are confronted with some difficulties, and we see no less difficulty for China this year. But think about it. Is there any single period or any single year where we had no difficulty at all? We, the Chinese people, have always been managed to pull through difficult time and achieve new progress and create new miracles.
像我们这一代人。小时候啊，听的最多的故事是大禹治水、愚公移山、精卫填海、夸父逐日等等，都很励志，讲的都是不怕困难、不畏艰险、勇于斗争、自强不息的精神。中国人从来没有被任何困难所压倒。
People of my generation are familiar with stories of heroes in Chinese legends, like Da Yu, who tamed the flood, Yu Gong, who moved the mountains, Jing Wei, who carried stones to fill up the ocean, and Kwa Fu, who chased after the sun. These inspiring stories are testament to the spirit of resilience, tenacity, and perseverance that has defined the Chinese nation. We, the Chinese people, have never been crushed by any difficulty.
从今年开年以后这2个来月啊，经济运行情况看，我们国家中国的经济呀，出现了企稳回升的态势。我看最近一些国际机构也调高了对中国今年经济的预期。
As the economic performance in the first 2 months of this year demonstrates, the Chinese economy is stabilizing and picking up again, and some international organizations have also revised upward their projections for China's economic growth this year.
对中国经济的前景，我想用8个字来概括，叫做“长风破浪，未来可期”。对此，我充满信心。
To sum up, I believe the Chinese economy will break winds and waves and sail toward a brighter future. I have full confidence in that.
谢谢。
Thank you.
请继续提问。
请南区第2排第2位女士提问，谢谢。
谢谢李总理您好，我是来自香港凤凰卫视、凤凰网、凤凰秀的记者胡玲。这几年其实我们可以看到，香港实现了由乱到治的一个根本性的转折啊，香港稳定下来了。那么其实这个过程当中呢，大家也会说，那么发展问题又摆在了眼前。那么对于香港来说的话，随着整个世界政经局势还有环境的变化，我关注到有评论认为，其实港澳目前的竞争力啊已经被弱化了。我就想请问，您会如何来看待港澳未来的发展前景？另外呢，大家其实非常关注的就是中央政府下一步还会有哪些措施来更好的支持港澳，来发挥自己的优势和特长，实现更好的发展呢？谢谢。
Phoenix TV. In recent years, Hong Kong has restored order and stability, marking a major turnaround in the situation. And now development in Hong Kong has captured the attention of many. But due to changes in international economic and political landscape, some believe that the international competitiveness of Hong Kong and Macau are weakening. So what is your assessment of the future prospect of Hong Kong and Macau? And how will the central government support Hong Kong and Macau in leveraging their strength and unique features and achieve better development?
中央政府始终高度重视发挥香港、澳门的独特优势和特点。回归以来，在国家的大力支持下，香港的国际金融中心、国际贸易中心、国际航运中心3大中心的地位没有变，而且得到了加强和巩固。澳门作为国际旅游休闲中心，仍然是享誉全球。
The central government has all along attached high importance to helping Hong Kong and Macau leveraging their unique strength and position. Since the return of Hong Kong and Macau to the motherland with the support of the country, Hong Kong's position as a global financial, trading, and shipping center has not changed. On the contrary, it has been strengthened and consolidated, and Macau has also built itself into a world-renowned tourism and leisure center.
确实，这几年受各种因素影响吧，香港、澳门在发展当中遇到了一些困难，但是我认为这还是暂时的困难，是发展中的困难。
It is true that in recent years, due to various factors, both Hong Kong and Macau have experienced some difficulties in their development. But I believe these are temporary difficulties that have arisen in the course of development.
中央政府将全面、准确、坚定不移地贯彻“一国两制”方针，全力支持香港、澳门融入国家发展大局，全力支持香港、澳门发展经济、改善民生。全力支持香港、澳门进一步提升国际竞争力。
The central government will fully, faithfully, and resolutely implement the policy of one country, two systems. We will give full support to Hong Kong and Macau in integrating into the country's overall development. We will give full support to the two regions in growing their economy and improving people's livelihood. We will give full support to the two regions in further building their global competitiveness.
我相信有祖国作为坚强护盾，有“一国两制”制度保障，香港、澳门的作用和地位只会加强，不会削弱。香港、澳门的明天一定会更加美好。
I'm confident with the strong backing of the motherland and the institutional safeguards of the one country, two systems policy, Hong Kong and Macau will only strengthen their position and role, and Hong Kong and Macau will enjoy an even brighter future.
谢谢。
Thank you.
请继续提问。
请北区第1排联合早报杨丹士。
谢谢新加坡联合早报。李总理您好，您早年做过温州市委书记，那温州市以及您后来任职的浙江省、江苏以及上海，都是中国民营经济非常发达的地方。那您对民营经济也有很深的了解，想请问，您认为中国还需要采取哪些措施提振民企的信心，支持民企的发展？那还有哪些地方做得不够，需要补齐？谢谢。
studied later on. We also have friends in Zoom. Ambassador Yabes is also in the room. We have many DTI friends. Hi, thanks for joining us. We also have friends, also Filipinos in Beijing, who can share some of their experience as OFWs. Are we logging in, Josh? Okay na? Okay. While they're loading up, I'll just take opportunity to share. We got this thanks to our interns' help. They got this from the internet, a bit of background of our subjects today, President Xi and Premier Li's political backgrounds.
Not change in the past and will not change in the future.
We'll do that later. We'll go
特别
back
是
to the
去年
question.
有一段时间，社会上出现了一些对民营经济发展的不正确言论，使一些企业家心存忧虑。其实，在发展民营经济这个问题上，一直是十分明确的。你看，党的19大、党的20大，去年底召开的中央经济工作会议，都对此做了强调。
Indeed, last year there were some inappropriate discussions about the private entrepreneur. In fact, the party central committee has clear policies and principles regarding the development of the private economy. Both the 19th and 20th National Congresses and the Central Economic Work Conference last year all reaffirmed these policies and principles.
我们是
Yeah, we'd like to take this opportunity, no? Siguro maraming oras tayong we're watching them, but we want to point out that I don't know if many of us have heard and listened to the speeches of the equivalent directional directions being set in the US. We know that in the US, the focus is on politics and geopolitics. They're talking about Democrats versus Republicans. The U.S. in relation to the rest of the world, they are trying to defend the rest of the world. That's the focus. They're not really talking about the homeless problems, about the banking problems. They're not talking about their technology falling behind our infrastructure. Now we notice. I want to point out that here, if we look at this, the top organizations of leaders of the Chinese, even while they're talking to the rest of the world, the focus is a little on that they just mentioned that they got Macau and Hong Kong controlled back. But you notice they're not only talking about the economy and investments, they are actually talking about the quality and direction. So they're not just talking about having more investments, because the unusual thing is, if you look at the statistics, even amidst the trade war, even amidst all the attacks from the US, actually the highest investments that China ever attained from the world, and actually even from US companies, came last year. So that means the business people are looking at business even more. They think there's really going to be a war, then business people will maybe withdraw, like they did in the Ukraine. But we know that even US companies, Tesla and all these companies, made their biggest investments in China. Even Apple, they went to India and they went back and invested the biggest. So ganyan lang, it's gonna help us. What we want to do is productive. We're not for or against any country. We're pointing out that here they're not only talking about investments because they don't need more. In fact, they're turning away a lot of investments. People may not realize it. In the last 10 years, they are not allowing anybody to invest in property in China from outside. They are making it restrictive. Higher taxes, holding period is longer, everything though. So they're discouraging actually foreigners from investing in property dahil mainit masyado.
And so ganyan, looking at the model of productivity that their leaders are following, no? But yes, yeah, we thank you for that question. It's a very relevant question. We'll take it up when we're maybe enjoying our lunch. Na? We'll go back to Anna. Thank you. Always the hard-hitting question. Yes, let's go back to the press con. Please reserve your question or text it to me also. That's a good question. We'll answer first later.
So I do hope that private entrepreneurs will carry forward their entrepreneurial spirit and strengthen confidence as they start their new journey.
说到这里啊，我就想起在上个世纪80、90年代，在我的老家浙江和江苏那时候发展个体私营经济和乡镇企业的时候提出来的、打造的4000精神，就是走遍千山万水，想尽千方百计，说遍千言万语，吃尽千辛万苦。
Talking about this, I remember that back in the 1980s and 90s, when my hometown, Zhejiang province, and the neighboring Jiangsu province were developing the private economy and township enterprises, the local entrepreneurs cultivated a strong pioneering spirit. To reach their goals, they were willing to explore all paths, go through all troubles, try all means, and endure all hardships.
虽然现在我们创业的条件、创业的环境、创业的模式与过去发生了很大的变化，但是当时那种筚路蓝缕、披荆斩棘的创业精神是永远需要的。
Although the conditions, environment, and the models of entrepreneurship are vastly different today, this kind of pioneering spirit of clearing obstacles and blazing new trails will always be needed.
我们各级干部啊，要真诚的、真心的关心支持民营企业发展，要与民营企业家交朋友，构建亲亲政商关系。 要带头营造尊重企业家、尊重创业者良好氛围。
Government officials at all levels must sincerely care for and support the development of private enterprises, make friends with private entrepreneurs, build clean and cordial relations with them, and take the lead in promoting a culture of respect for pioneers and entrepreneurs.
我相信，在新时代、新征程上，我们广大民营企业家一定会谱写出更加辉煌的新的创业史。
I'm confident that in the new era and on their new journey, our private entrepreneurs will continue to write their exciting entrepreneurship stories.
谢谢。
Thank you.
请继续提问。请南区第4排第4位女士提问，谢谢。
总理您好，我是澎湃新闻的记者。网民呢对一些热点民生问题高度关注，请问今年我国就业形势依然严峻，政府将采取哪些措施稳就业呢？去年中国出现了多年未有的人口负增长，这是否意味着人口红利即将消失？今年会不会出台延迟退休政策呢？谢谢。
The paper. The netizens are all following closely issues concerning their livelihood. But this year, the employment situation is going to remain serious in China. So what steps will the government take to stabilize employment? And last year, China's population experienced negative growth for the first time in years. Does that mean China's demographic dividend is disappearing? And will the government introduce the policy of postponed retirement this year?
我非常愿意回答网民的关切啊，我自己也可以说是个老网民了。我现在如果有空也会上网，看看大家关心什么，提了哪些建议和意见。
I'm happy to answer questions raised by the netizens. I would call myself a veteran netizen because when I have time, I also go online quite a lot to see what the netizens are thinking and what suggestions they have for the work of the government.
刚才这位记者实际上是提了3个问题，第一个是就业，我先回答你第一个问题。
The journalist actually asked 3 questions. The first question is on employment.
确实，就业是民生之本，但要解决就业问题，我认为最根本的一条还是要靠发展经济。
Indeed, employment is the cornerstone of people's livelihood, but ultimately, the solution to job creation lies in economic growth.
下步具体工作当中啊，我们会全面落实就业优先的战略，我们会进一步加大相关的政策支持力度，特别是就业服务、技能培训这方面的政策力度会进一步加大。另外，我们一定会综合施策，扩大和稳定现代就业岗位。还有就是对于现在新的一种就业形态，我们既要支持，另外要规范发展。
As for the specific steps going forward, we will continue to pursue an employment-first strategy. We will increase government support in terms of employment services and technical training. We will take multiple steps to stabilize and expand employment. We will also support and regulate the development of new forms of employment.
我看今年好像网上比较关心是大学生就业。 因为今年大学毕业生啊，在中国是再创新高，预计现在今年毕业的大学生规模是1158万人。这个对于就业来讲，确实是增加了一定的压力，但是从发展的角度，这是好事。这么多的年轻人走上新的岗位，一定会为我们这个社会注入蓬勃的朝气。 和新的活力。
I noticed that people on the internet care a lot about the employment of college graduates. Indeed, this year we expect to see 11.58 million college graduates entering the workforce, which will be a record high. This large number certainly adds pressure to employment, but if we look at it from a development perspective, it could be a good thing because with so many young people entering the workforce, they can inject energy and vitality into our society.
下步我们要广开就业渠道，要帮助支持年轻人通过自己的劳动和奋斗，去实现自己更加美好的人生价值。
Going forward, we will further expand channels of employment, and in particular, we will help and support young people to realize their personal values through hard work.
刚才你提的第2个问题好像是负增长，人口负增长。确实，我也看到，对于我们国家人口增长由正转负，大家有所担忧。有的人担心我们国家的人口红利是不是就此消失了？我看恐怕不是这么简单。
Your second question concerns population growth. I've also noticed that the negative population growth in China has caused much concern, and some people are worried that China's demographic dividend may be disappearing. But I don't think it is that simple.
人口红利既要看人口数量，更要看人口质量；既要看人口数，更要看人才数。
When assessing demographic dividend, we should look at not just the quantity, but also the quality of population. We should not just look at the sheer size of the population, but also look at the scale of high caliber workforce.
我们国家现在劳动力总数或者 准确表述应该是适合劳动年龄人口已经有近9亿人，而且每年新增劳动力是1500万人，人力资源丰富，仍然是我们中国一个巨大优势，或者说显著优势。
Now we have close to 900 million working age population, and every year 15 million people join the workforce. A rich supply of human resources remains China's notable strength.
更重要的是，我们国家接受高等教育的人口已经超过2亿4千万，每年新增的劳动力平均受教育的年限已经达到14年。
More importantly, we have more than 240 million people with experience in higher education, and the average length of education received by new entrants to the workforce has increased to 14 years.
因此可以说，我们的人口红利并没有消失，人才红利正在逐步形成，发展的动力依旧强劲。
Therefore, China's demographic dividend has not disappeared, and our talent dividend is in the making. The driving force for China's development remains strong and robust.
当然，对人口增减变化带来的一系列的社会问题，我们一定是进一步的深入研究，积极应对。
That said, we will conduct careful study on the social problems that may be brought by the changes in population and respond with appropriate steps.
刚才提的第3个问题，退休政策，对这件事我看到晚上也是很关心，我们一定会认真研究，充分论证，在合适的时候稳妥推出。
Your third question concerns postponement policy. I noticed that it is also a quite hot topic on the internet. We will conduct rigorous studies and a thorough analysis to roll out the policy prudently in due course.
谢谢。
Thank you.
请继续提问。
请中区第4排中间位置，乌兹别克斯坦人民言论报鲁斯兰。
Ruslan Kinjaev, Народное слово newspaper, Uzbekistan. My question is, China kept strict COVID measures in place for over 2 years. As some people in the world have questioned, were those measures truly necessary? And what preparation has China made for a potential new wave of COVID? 谢谢。
乌兹别克斯坦人民言论报，国际上有些人质疑，相比于其他国家，中国在防疫上实施了2年多的严控，是否确有必要？应对未来可能出现的新一波疫情，中国做了哪些准备？
疫情3年，中国人民在中国共产党的坚强领导下，全国上下同心抗疫，现在已经取得重大决定性胜利。
For over 3 years, under the strong leadership of the Communist Party of China, the Chinese people have united in fighting COVID-19, and now we have achieved major and decisive victory in the battle against the disease.
3年来，我们始终坚持人民至上、生命至上，坚持科学精准防控，因时因势不断地优化调整各种防控措施。
For the past 3 years, we have always put the people and their lives above everything else. We have adopted a well-conceived and targeted control approach and adjusted and improved our response measures in light of changing conditions.
在疫情初期传播力比较强的时候，我们国家果断采取措施，实行乙类甲管，有效地保护了人民的生命安全和身体健康，也为我们国家的疫苗开发、药物开发以及后来疫苗接种的普及赢得了宝贵时间。
At the beginning of the pandemic, when the virus was highly pathogenic, we made timely response with containment measures for Class A infectious disease. Such an effort helped protect people's life and health and won us valuable time for the R&D of vaccines and medicines and for the rolling out of vaccination.
后来随着这个病毒的致病力的减弱，也随着我们国家防控能力的提高，我们又对一系列防控措施进行了优化调整，适时的进行了防控的转段，实行了一类一管。
At the later stage, when the virus became less pathogenic and with the increase in China's capacity for pandemic control, we have improved and adjusted our COVID response measures and achieved a smooth transition in COVID response phase by putting COVID back to the category of Class B infectious disease.
在我们这样一个人口众多、发展不平衡的大国，我们只用了不到2个月的时间，实现了疫情防控的平稳转段，较快地恢复了经济社会的正常秩序，这是很了不起的。
China is a country with a large population and imbalanced development, yet it only took us less than 2 months to achieve a smooth transition in COVID response phase and restored normal economic and social order in a relatively short span of time. This is indeed a remarkable achievement.
实践证明，中国的各项疫情防控的各项策略措施是完全正确的，防控的成效是巨大的。
What has happened proves that China's COVID strategies and measures are completely right, and our COVID response has been highly effective.
人类与病毒做斗争啊，是一个长期的、漫长的历史过程。现在新冠病毒传播的风险依然存在，我们一直在跟踪研判，及时做好预警预测，而且我们现在也制定了不同情景下、不同场景怎么样应对可能出现的疫情传播风险的各种应对预案。
Humanity's battle against the virus is a long-term and historical process. Currently, the risk of virus transmission still exists, so we will continue to follow and study the evolving situation, build up our capacity for early warning and forecast, and we have also made contingency plans for different kinds of scenarios.
我们还会不断地加强各级医疗卫生服务体系的建设，加快新的疫苗药物的开发，同时我们一直保持与国际社会的沟通合作，共同维护人类健康福祉。
We will also strengthen medical and health service systems at all levels and speed up the development of new vaccines and drugs. We have also been engaged in communication and cooperation with the international community to jointly protect the health and well-being of humanity.
谢谢。
Thank you.
请继续提问。请北区第3排第1位男士提问，谢谢。
李总理你好，我是台湾联合报记者。大陆方面表示，始终将关爱、尊重以及造福台湾同胞。随着大陆疫情防控的调整跟优化，两岸民众都希望能够尽快全面恢复两岸的正常交流跟往来。请问总理，大陆在推动两岸经济文化合作交流以及人员的往来方面有何规划？谢谢。
United Daily News Group from Taiwan. The mainland says it always respect, care about, and promote the well-being of compatriots in Taiwan. So with the adjustment and improvement of COVID protocols on the mainland, people on both sides of the straits look forward to the early restoration of normal exchanges. So what measures will the mainland take to promote economic and cultural exchanges and personnel travel across the straits?
两岸同胞是一家人，我们常说血浓于水，打断骨头连着筋。
Chinese on both sides of the Taiwan Straits are members of one and the same family. We share an unbreakable bond of blood and kinship.
我们将在一个中国原则和9·2共识的基础上，继续推进两岸的经济、文化交流和合作，要让更多的台胞、台企到大陆来，不仅是让他们愿意来，还要融得进，有更好的发展。
We will continue to promote economic and cultural exchanges and cooperation across the Taiwan Straits on the basis of the One China principle and the 1992 consensus. And we also encourage more Taiwan compatriots and businesses to come to the mainland. We hope they will not just be willing to come to the mainland, but also be able to integrate into the local communities and achieve better development.
确实，像刚才记者先生说的，早日实现两岸的正常往来，恢复常态化的合作，是我们的共同期盼，更需要我们共同努力。
Just as the journalist said, the early restoration of normal exchanges and regular cooperation between the two sides of the Taiwan Straits is our shared aspiration and requires our joint efforts.
谢谢。
Thank you.
请继续提问。请中区第2排第3位男士提问，谢谢。
谢谢。总理您好，我是人民日报记者。全面建设社会主义现代化国家，最艰巨、最繁重的任务仍然在农村。请问总理，本届政府在推进乡村振兴上有哪些考虑？对保障中国粮食安全有哪些举措？谢谢。
People's Daily. In building a modern socialist country, the most arduous and complex task is in the countryside. So what plan does this government have in promoting rural revitalization, and what measures will be taken to ensure China's food security?
中国是一个农业大国，我们现在还有近5亿人常住在农村，可以说没有农业农村的现代化，社会主义现代化是不全面的。
China is a major agricultural country. We now still have close to 500 million people permanently resided in the countryside. So without the modernization of rural sector and agriculture, socialist modernization will be not complete.
去年底，党中央召开了农村工作会议，习近平总书记在会上发表了重要讲话，专门就建设农业强国、抓好三农工作、推进乡镇振兴提出了全面的要求。当前我们整个农业农村工作就是要按照中央的要求，把每项工作抓落实。
During the Central Rural Work Conference last year, General Secretary Xi Jinping gave an important speech and made comprehensive instructions on building a strong agricultural country, advancing work relating to agriculture, rural development of farmers, and promoting rural revitalization. So our task is to deliver on the important decisions and instructions made by the Party Central Committee.
就乡村振兴这件事来讲，我看下步要突出或者要关注3个关键词。
In promoting rural revitalization, we will focus on the following 3 keywords.
第一是全面，乡村振兴不仅仅是发展经济，我觉得更重要的要全面彰显乡村的价值，包括经济价值、生态价值、社会价值、文化价值等等。
The first keyword is comprehensive. Rural revitalization is not just about economic growth. In my view, it is also important to bring out the economic, ecological, social, and cultural values of the countryside.
第2个关键词叫特色。中国地域辽阔，10里不同风，100里不同所因此各地 必须因地制宜，打造各具特色的乡村风貌，特别要注意保护好、传承好地域文化、乡土文化，不能搞成千村一色、千村一面。
The second keyword is distinctive features. China is a vast country. Cultures and customs vary from village to village, even though they may be just miles apart. So different localities must develop countrysides based on local conditions. It is important to protect and preserve the local and rural culture, and also avoid a situation where all villages look the same.
第三个关键词是改革，要通过深化农村改革来促进乡村振兴。农民是乡村振兴的主体，我们一定要充分调动广大农民的积极性，让农民参与到乡村振兴中来，而且要让农民更多的分享由于改革发展带来的成果。
The third keyword is reform. We need to deepen reform of the rural sector to provide drivers for rural revitalization. Farmers are the principal actors in rural revitalization. We need to bring out their initiative and let them take part in rural revitalization and sharing the benefits of reform and development.
刚才这位记者还问到粮食安全问题，我们国家已经连续8年年粮食产量超过1.3万亿斤，总体上看，我们的粮食安全是有保障的。
The journalist also asked a question about food security. The total grain output in China has stayed above 650 million metric tons for 8 years in a row. So on the whole, food security is well guaranteed in this country.
下步我们会抓住2个要害，第一是耕地，第二是种植，不断地提高我们国家的粮食生产能力。
Going forward, we will further increase our grain production capacity by focusing on 2 key factors, arable land and seeds.
这里我特别想跟我们的农民朋友说句话，国家支持粮食生产的政策只会增加，不会减少，鼓励大家多种粮，一定要确保14亿中国人的饭碗牢牢地端在我们自己手中。
Here, I want to let our farmers' friends know that the government's policy in support of grain production will only increase, not decrease. And we encourage our farmers to produce more grains so as to make sure that the rice bowl of the 1.4 billion Chinese people will always be firmly held in our own hands.
谢谢。
Thank you.
请继续提问。
请南区第3排左起第1位，中阿卫视方浩明。
李总理你好 I am from CATV. My question is, the world is witnessing more geopolitical frictions and signs of deglobalization. Meanwhile, China-US relations remain under serious strain. Although China has been reassuring the world of its commitment to reform and opening up, foreign businesses remain worried and some are considering relocation. Will China adjust its opening up policy? How do you see the current China-US ties? And what are the prospects that the relations might improve? 谢谢。
中阿卫视，当前地缘政治摩擦和去全球化加剧，中美关系紧张对立。虽然中国一直强调坚定不移地推进改革开放，但外资外企依然难以感到安心，有的开始考虑撤离。请问，中国的对外开放政策会有变化吗？您如何看待当前的中美关系及其改善前景？
今年呢是中国改革开放45周年，改革开放发展了中国，也影响了世界。
This year marks the 45th anniversary of the launch of reform and opening up in China. Reform and opening up have enabled China to develop itself and also made an impact on the whole world.
据我掌握的情况资料看啊，绝大多数外资企业仍然是看好在华的发展前景的。去年我们中国实际利用外资是1890多亿美元，再创历史新高。这个数据做个比较，与疫情之前就3年前，我们还多了近500亿美元，说明不好意思，说明中国仍然是全球的投资高地。
From what I learned, most foreign companies are still optimistic about their development prospect in China. Last year, China's utilized foreign investment totaled $189 billion, which is again a record high, and it is even close to $50 billion more than 3 years ago or before the pandemic. And this demonstrates that China remains a popular destination for global investment.
对外开放是我们国家的基本国策，不管外部形势发生什么变化，我们一定是坚定不移地向前推进。
Opening up is a basic state policy for China. No matter how the external situation may evolve, we will stay firmly committed to pursuing this policy.
这里我特别想说一说中国国际进口博览会，这是中国主动向世界开放市场、共享发展机遇的重大举措。
Here I want to mention in particular China International Import-Export, or CIIE. CIIE is a major step taken by China the world and share its development opportunities with the world.
建国5届，即使在疫情情况下，也从来没有中断。我很荣幸，5届我都参加了。
The CIIE has been held uninterrupted for 5 years in Shanghai. Even during the pandemic, it was still held as scheduled, and I had the honor to attend all the 5 editions of CIIE.
我如果没记错的话，去年有127个国家和地区，2800多家企业参展，一次性展出的面积多达35万平方米。
If I remember this correctly, last year there were over 2,800 enterprises from 127 countries and regions attending the expo, and the total exhibition space was over 350,000 square meters.
进博会的举办，充分说明开放的中国大市场是世界各国企业发展的大机遇。
The story of CIIE proves that an open big Chinese market promises big opportunities for companies from around the world.
今年我们还会对接高标准的国际经贸规则，进一步扩大开放。中国对外开放的大门只会越开越大，环境会越来越好，服务会越来越优。
This year, we will further expand opening up in alignment with high-standard international trade rules. China will only open itself wider to the world. We will provide better environment and services for all.
开放的中国，发展的中国，欢迎大家来投资兴业。
An open China, a China that is in the constant process of development, welcomes investors from all over the world.
刚才这位记者先生提到中美关系问题，有关中美关系的具体问题，前几天秦刚外长在举行的记者会上已经做了全面的阐述，我在这里不再多做重复。我想说的是，当前重要的是要把习近平主席与拜登总统去年11月份会晤时达成的一系列重要共识，转化为 具体行动和实际方案。
The journalists also asked about China-US relations. And as for the specific issues concerning China-US relations, our Foreign Minister Qin Gang already elaborated on our position during the press conference a couple of days ago. So I will not go into details. But I want to stress that it is important for us to translate the important consensus reached between President Xi Jinping and President Biden during the meeting last November into actual policies and concrete actions.
我知道在美国国内啊，这几年有人在炒作中美两国脱钩的论调，有烧还比较热，但我不知道到底有多少人在这种炒作当中真正受益。
I know that in recent years, some in the United States have been trumpeting the idea of decoupling with China, and sometimes it could become quite a hot topic on the media. But I wonder how many people can truly benefit from this kind of hype.
据中方统计啊，去年中美的贸易额已经高达近7600亿美元，再创历史新高。
According to Chinese statistics, last year, two-way trade between China and the United States totaled $760 billion, which again set a new record in history.
中美经济你中有我，我中有你，彼此都从对方的发展当中受益。
China and the United States are closely intertwined economically. We have both benefited from the other side's development.
我去年很长时间是在上海工作，那里有7万多家外资企业，因此我也有很多的机会与包括美资在内的外企的高管接触交流，他们都给我说看好上海，看好中国，世界应该合作。
For most part of last year, I was working in Shanghai, a city that houses 70,000 foreign companies. So I had a lot of opportunities to talk with the senior managers of multinational corporations, including many American companies. They all told me that they were optimistic about the future of Shanghai and China. They all hope to see cooperation between all countries in the world.
他们都认为啊，合作才能共赢。
They all believe that cooperation is the sure path that will lead to win-win outcomes.
这些都表明中美可以合作，应该合作，中美合作大有可为。
All this demonstrates that China and the United States can and must cooperate, and there are a lot that the two countries can achieve by working together.
唯独打压对谁都没好处。
Encirclement and suppression is in no one's interest.
谢谢。
Thank you.
请继续提问。请南区第6排第一位男士提问，谢谢。
谢谢主持人。总理您好，我是新华社记者。我们都知道，新一届政府面临着艰巨繁重的任务，各方面也都寄予很高的期望，这对政府的履职能力、工作作风都提出了很高的要求。请问新一届政府在加强自身建设方面有哪些考虑？谢谢。
Xinhua News Agency. The new government faces an arduous and complex task and also high expectations from the people. This has raised new requirements on the governing capacity and the conduct of the government. So what plan does the new government has in terms of strengthening government building?
确实啊，如你所说的，新的使命任务对我们这一届政府统治啊，提出了更高的新的要求。我们将以这一轮的机构改革为契机，切实加强政府自身建设，转变职能，提高效能，改进作风。
Indeed, the new mission and new task have raised new and higher requirements on the new government team.
We will take the new round of state institutional reform as an opportunity to strengthen government building. We will further transform government functions, make the government's work more efficient, and improve the conduct of the government.
下步工作当中，我们会突出抓4件事。第一，大兴调查研究之风，党中央已经就此提出了明确要求，国务院要带头抓好贯彻落实。
Going forward, we will focus on the following 4 priorities. First, we will promote the practice of research and studies. The Party Central Committee has already made clear requirements on that, and the State Council must take the lead in meeting these requirements.
我长期在地方工作，有一个很深的感受，就是坐在办公室碰到的都是问题，下去调研看到的全是办法，高手在民间。
I have worked in local governments for a long time. My experience is that when you sit in the office, you see lots of problems. But when you reach out to the people, you see all kinds of solutions. After all, the brightest minds are among the people.
我们一定会推动各级干部多到基层去调查研究，问计于民，问需于民，向群众学习，拜群众为师，帮助基层解决更多的实际问题。
We will encourage government officials at all levels to engage more with the local communities, to know about what the people need and seek their opinions on the work of the government. They need to learn from the people, take people as their teachers, and help the people solve their actual problems.
特别是长期在大机关做办公室的年轻人，要更多的深入基层、心入基层，更多的接地气。
In particular, young people working in government ministries should reach out to the people, keep people's needs and interests close to their heart, and be down to earth in their work.
第二个要突出抓的是，就是扎实推进依法行政。政府的所有工作必须要在法律框架内进行，政府的所有行政行为必须于法有据。
The second priority is to promote governance in accordance with law. The government must act within the confines of law, and all government conducts must be based on solid legal grounds.
我们会进一步的推进法治政府建设，我们的工作人员要进一步提高用法治思维、法治方式解决问题的能力。
We will continue to promote the building of a law-based government, and public servants need to build up their capacity for applying the method and mentality of rule of law in solving real problems.
第三件我们想要突出抓的是，就是要提高创造性的执行能力。
The third priority is to explore innovative ways in performing our duties.
各级政府各部门、各位公务人员一定要牢固树立发展意识、服务意识。
Government departments at all levels and civil servants must be conscious of their duty to serve the people and promote the country's development.
特别是我们有关部门在履行审批、监管等职责时候，不能只踩刹车不踩油门，不能只设路障不设路标，凡事要更多的做应不应该给他办的价值判断，不能简单的做可不可以判的技术判断。
In particular, when dealing with matters concerning administration, regulation, and approval, the relevant government departments should not just slam on the brake, but also hit on the accelerator. They should not just set up roadblocks, but also need to put up road signs. They should make more valued judgment and think about whether something shall be done, instead of just making a purely technical judgment and decide whether something can be done.
我们坚决反对一切形式主义、官僚主义，要真正做有创造力的执行者。
We are firmly opposed to pointless formality and bureaucratism in all forms, and we must be creative in performing our duties.
第4件我们要突出抓的是坚决守住廉洁底线。我们将始终以严的标准、严的要求推进廉洁政府建设，对一切腐败行为零容忍。
The fourth priority is to uphold the principle of integrity. We will apply stringent standards and requirements in building a clean government, and will take a zero-tolerance attitude to all acts of corruption.
每一位政府工作人员必须自觉接受监督，真正做到忠诚、干净、当当。
All government officials must subject themselves to supervision and truly meet the requirements of being loyal, upright, and responsible.
谢谢大家。
Thank you.
今天的提问到此结束，感谢李总理和各位副总理，也感谢大家对14届全国人大一次会议的广泛关注和充分报道。总理记者会到此结束，谢谢。
好，谢谢
I
大
want to
家。
thank Premier Li and the Vice Premiers for attending the press conference. I also want to thank all of you for your attention to and extensive coverage of the first session of the 14th National People's Congress. This is the end of the press conference. Thank you.
好，谢谢，谢谢。
Chinese Premier Li Qiang has just met the press from home and abroad and answered the questions from a wide range of topics. And this is Premier Li Qiang's first press conference in meeting with global media.
That's right, and he was sworn into office on Saturday, and now China's new lineup of leaders has wrote out the blueprint for the country's development for the year and the next 5 years beyond. So now let's get some analysis from our guests here in the studio. So gentlemen, we've seen the new premier taking questions from home and abroad. He touched on quite a few issues, from the goals and priorities of the government to international relations, of course, China's development in relation to the rest of the world. Which item on his list of concern impressed you the most?
I think for this debut by the new Premier Li Qiang, it's very impressive. I think it's down to earth pragmatism and realism really gave me very deep impressions. He definitely is well prepared. His answers are, in my view, are impromptu, without referring to any written scripts, for example. And then he knows the matters. He talked about a great deal. He talked about his many years as a leader in local governments. In
Good afternoon, magandang tanghali sa inyong lahat. We are having some interviews in the back, but we are going to go straight with our panel experts. Once they finish in a few minutes, Rafael, can you please let our experts know whenever they're ready? We'll start with the panel reaction. Lunch is also ready, so please help yourself. If you need, there's like 3 or 4 events happening at the same time. So we're very fortunate to be able to enjoy today's lunch together. But please be patient with us. I will ask, I think they have assigned one waiter for us. If they can help clean up, and then we'll go straight to the panel reaction.
And I think overall it's an A+. And I think the fact that he talked about all these, high quality development. He also talked about the rural development, how to improve the situations involving farmers, and also science and technology, and also how to deal with foreign investments. And the fact that last year foreign direct investment into China broke the record, and China-US trade, despite of all the resistance and headwinds created by Washington, again broke the record. I think he is very confident and is also very cautious in a sense. And I think the whole nation should be very happy that we now have a very solid, very pragmatic, very realistic new premier who will lead the State Council forward in the coming 5 years. He also is very modest when he talked about the highlights and the top priorities of the State Council. He was emphatic about the fact that most of the major decisions were made last year in October by the 20th Party Congress, as well as the comprehensive economic policies adopted by the Central Committee, for example. And he said that the main job for the State Council is to make sure that the blueprints already laid out would be translated into an action plan. And this is exactly what the State Council need to do, get things done. Roll up the sleeves and really get to work. And I think the fact that he also brought
and then when the reactors return, we'll go straight to the questions. So please help yourselves. We'll just ask the waiters to help clean up the tables.
Get all the things in the State Council done. It really depends on seamless cooperation.
Indeed. Teamwork. And now, gentlemen, let's get more observation from the very venue of this press conference held by Premier Li Qiang. And let's cross live to our colleague Tian Wei standing by there. Hello, Tian Wei, give us the major takeaway.
Handong, as you can see, journalists here in the press room are get ready to leave and try to run for their assignment for today.
Certainly the debut of the Chinese Premier Li Qiang. One is Eric Nicolino of NBC, and I think another Filipina with Philippine News Agency. We'll see if we can zoom in with them as well later.
We have seen he's talking about the goals of his job is to implement what the 20th National Congress of the CPC and the Central Economic Work Conference illustrated last year. So the principles are very clear.
My beautiful co-host, Ms. Pia Morato, please join us in the front, and then maybe Entong should
growing stability. Meanwhile, he said it is important for him to address the people's needs, put people at the center, and make people feel happy. He said it's not about necessarily just the GDP numbers. It is about people's jobs, incomes, also education, medical care, and so on, housing as well. So you see a Chinese Premier Li Qiang very well prepared to speak to his constituencies. Meanwhile, he has been talking to them almost directly with his personal commitment and assurances, and also from the collective strength of this State Council. He talked about assurances to the private entrepreneurs for respect for their entrepreneurial spirit, for possibilities for new racing tracks and sectors for entrepreneurs to grow. He tried to reassure the farmers in China that there will be favorable policies for them to grow grains and try to bring the nation for the goals of food security. He also tried to reassure the netizens in China. He said he is using the internet often and try to solicit the opinions also from online, try to see what's going on in the minds of the public. He tried to assure the elderly populations in China regarding retirement age. He said the policies will be carefully studied before it is being put out at the right time. He, of course, also tried to assure the foreign investor by using the example of CIIE, China's important event of the year to import goods from all over the world, and also talk about his interactions with foreign investors throughout the years, suggesting in the city of Shanghai, for example, where he used to work, 70,000 foreign companies have their bases there. So you see a lot of personal commitment and collective commitment from the State Council to the constituencies. Meanwhile, he talked about the spirits of this State Council, namely quoting Chinese traditional stories and legends, suggesting 大禹 taming the water, or Yugong moving the mountain, to say once you have the determination, there's always the way to go. But the way is not just coming without hard efforts. In fact, he talked about what China has. He assured the international community of China's advantages: supersized market, industrial system, human resources and also institutional systems and innovation. He tried to assure, as you can see, throughout the almost 1 hour and a half press conference given by the new Premier of China, that China is on its way for further reform and opening up, and China is on its way with confidence to together work with the world to solve the global issues, but at the same time to make better life for the Chinese people. Back to you, Panda.
Thank you very much, our colleague Tian Wei at Great Hall of the People. So, gentlemen, let's continue talking about this. Mr. Bram, we noticed that Premier Li Qiang have emphasized his commitment, of course, China's commitment to carry on and deepen reform and opening up. What are the major policy signals here for global investors?
Well, let's first of all talk about the signal for domestic investors.
Right.
The emphasis on the private sector, I think, has been long awaited by the private sector. Since the 1990s and China began its reform and opening, the opening to foreign investment has also been paralleled by an enormous push on the private sector, which has really become the backbone of the Chinese economy. If you talk about creativity, if you talk about technology, innovation, all of this is coming from the private sector. You can't plan creativity. And so the question that we've had for many people has, in the post-COVID era, will the private sector receive the same boost as the state sector? And I think his words are really will give people more confidence in this area. And of course, private sector is in many cases the partner for foreign investment. And so we're looking now at private sector also going out of China, investing out. And if we look at, for instance, in Qatar, the World Cup, the entire infrastructure that was smart, green, and blue, with all of the integrative parts of that, many of which are coming from the private sector, even if it's state sector that's driving the larger infrastructure there. This is the kind of investment on the Belt and Road that we're going to be seeing in the future, where China is taking its own experience at having ecological infrastructure and being able to provide that to nations that need to develop themselves. I think right now we see this enormous rapport between Saudi and Iran, and China's been very much behind this peacemaking effort. And this is not only, we're talking about, global impact on peace, but also on investment, because both nations are going to be transferring their own economies away from entirely fossil fuel based. And in the future, they're going to need to have smart green and blue infrastructure as well. And that kind of integration, I think, is where we're going to be seeing the future. We're going to be seeing a future with China, the Middle East, developing nations working together increasingly more, as we see more kind of a pushback coming from North America and some European countries, which the Premier emphasizes unnecessary collaboration, cooperation is still in the benefit of everybody. Separation, deglobalization will have its impact for everyone. But I think certainly measures that are being taken, especially on grain production, is also envisioning the need to be able to be self-reliant while evolving relations with alliance countries, countries that have mutual interests, as we see in the Belt and Road.
Yeah, certainly some very encouraging signals to the private sector. It could be a shot in the arm for these entrepreneurs waiting for any positive news for their careers going forward.
Right.
And then my overall impression, Professor Gao, would be that the Premier really wants to stay connected to the people. He emphasized priorities for the government, maintaining stability in terms of the creation of jobs, prices, as well as economic growth. Now, and he also called on government officials at different levels to reach out to the people, to get wisdom from the people, and to listen to their voices in formulating government plans from bottom up. So I want to get your overall impression of the press conference.
Absolutely. I think Premier Li Keqiang, Premier Li Qiang quoted what President Xi Jinping said again and again. That is, the aspiration of the people should be the goal of the government. And I think he demonstrated that he really cared about the aspirations of the people. Now, you mentioned, and Mr. Bram also mentioned, the private businesses in China receiving a shot from his very confident speeches. But I would say that after listening very carefully to Premier Li Qiang, I think my long-term dream can be better and sooner realized. That is, I hope eventually the private enterprises, state-owned enterprises, and foreign enterprises in China will have completely equal access to resources, land, labor, for example, as well as financial accesses, etc. And there will be no more distinctions as to what kind of equity ownership that mattered. I think consumers should just care whether this company is doing its job in terms of quality, in terms of social responsibility, environmental protection, and also green development, for example. And eventually, a customer should not care about whether this airline is owned by the state-owned enterprise or privately operated. I think the quality of the service, the reliability of the service, and then the company's social responsibility should eventually matter, rather than everyone is seized upon whether this company itself is privately owned or state-owned. I think eventually, and I'm pretty sure Premier Li Qiang will do a great job in promoting this, there will be completely level playground for all companies in China, regardless of their equity structure, equity ownership, regardless of whether they are Chinese companies at home or foreign invested companies. I hope that day will come sooner rather than later, and this will really make sure that the Chinese companies will be equally committed to doing their job for the Chinese consumers' benefit as well as for the global consumers' benefit.
Now, let's also remember that Premier Li Qiang also emphasized the so-called two unswervely, basically meaning public and private sector should develop in a organic unity fashion. And also touching upon China's population and aging population issue, Mr. Bram, Premier Li Qiang said China's demographic dividend has not vanished, and he also talked about the nurturing of China's talent dividend. What do you make of the future policy direction in this particular regard?
There's going to be a huge emphasis on technology, particularly in the Greater Bay Area. And again, as we've talked about earlier, reform of the healthcare system, reform environmental transition to green energy, all of this is technology based. And so he's going to, the Premier is facing a big challenge. You have an enormous number of students graduating from school, enormous amount of youth looking for jobs. So you have to create jobs. And those jobs will be, to a great extent, created in the technology sectors. Now, technology also goes along with finance. It is a finance-dependent industry. And I think he's also emphasized the need to tighten supervision of finance. You've had situations last year in Henan, Zhengzhou, where you had irregular financial problems, and this now needs to be addressed. You also have a deleveraging issue, certain local governments, and of course you're looking at the Silicon Valley Bank collapse.
Everyone, please settle down. We'll have our be returning in a few minutes.
In this country.
Get your lunch.
So financial stability seems to be an enormous emphasis on his agenda going forward, because that will assure job employment. It will assure the technology opportunities that will create that job employment, and in turn those technologies through new innovation that will be the driving force for the actual reforms that are on the agenda right now. So I think this is where he's going to be pushing. And yeah, there's a lot of talent out there. Young Chinese people have a lot of creativity, innovation, and it's about allowing that to foster and grow and giving it the stimulus rather than trying to control it, but to allow it to nurture. And I think this
Indeed,
is
providing
very much
opportunities for the younger generation and
is
let them
very much
contribute to the
what
development of the country.
That's
Thank you very
the
much,
agenda,
Mr.
yes.
Lawrence Bram and Professor.
Everyone, media friends, get your food first. Please settle down. Si Pia dito. Si Pia dito. Sa expert dito. One, two, three. Okay. Okay. Wala na yun. Pwede pa turn off na lang. Expert dito. One mo na lang. Dito ka na lang. Hindi, gusto mo sa gitna? Sa gitna? Dito. Sir G. One more, everyone. Move one more. Okay, we'll do a talk show type setup. Pia has collected some of the advanced questions from the Zoom. Pia, you have some advanced questions. So we have Senator Kit Tatad, who was the youngest minister under the Marcos father, and he actually engaged with China personally in the 80s and 90s. So he will also have in 70s. I wasn't going to give away too much. Yes, we leave it at the 80s. We have a Wharton trained economist, investor, business developer, Mr. George Shi. We'll share the press release and their profiles in depth later via email. We have Dr. Arlene Marasigan, Philippines-China Friendship Club. Dr. Marasigan studied in China in one of the top education university, and she's now a professor in Philippine Normal University. We have attorney Ira Pozon, who is our tech expert, who was the consultant for the ARTA anti-red tape bill and studied in National University of Singapore, UK, and Fuji and uh, Hong Kong and China as well. No, so without further ado, Miss Pia, the media, maybe you can ask the media questions first. Do we still have media friends here? Okay, if not yet, then we'll have Pia go straight to the questions. And then once we have the media back from their getting pulled, we can ask from the media. Go ahead.
Recording in progress.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, sirs. Good afternoon.
Recording stopped.
So, as we saw earlier in the press, we are being told is that by 2030, China is the economy in the world. By 2035, China is cutting in industry.
So, if it's true that it is for humanitarian purposes, what is wrong with inspecting the cases? So I think we just have to have our own decision systems. We leave it, the powers to the president, but you guys, you in media, will have a very big role. And you guys, opinion makers, influencers, have a very big role in what is going to happen in the next few years.
Yeah, from a education perspective, I think we need to promote this win-win solution that we are facing right now. US and China, they are doing their best when it comes to economy, when it comes to politics. But we as educator, I think it's better to find a common ground. As we heard from Premier Lee, there's so much issue to address, and as an education advocate, I want to focus more on collaboration with China on how to promote this rural poverty alleviation. And because you know what, we cannot close the gap even we have this economic prosperity because we have this left behind area in our country. No matter how we advance our technology, no matter how we advance our economy, but if we focus in the, like what we call the Imperial Manila and big cities here in the Philippines, how can we solve the problem of narrowing or zeroing the gap when it comes to economic prosperity? Because I think education is one of the strongest driver when it comes to achieving economy and equality. So deeper understanding of the politics of education, deeper understanding of the politics of the economy, I think it would be better for not for us, but for future, but for our future generation. Thank you.
When it comes to issues of technology, I would hope that the country continues the presidential mandate on friends to all ends. Because we are dealing with the top two largest economies in the world, and they are both engaged in their own races through their advancement of technology. And it has become very clear that it is an embargo style of dealing with the race in technology. China has the facility, the human resource, the money to really develop as they go to the next stages of the fourth,
even the fifth industrial revolutions. But they cannot do so, especially now with President Biden's choice of imposing a regulation on any foreign made semiconductor that is created with US software or US tools. Before they sell to China, they have to register and get a license from the United States. That makes it almost impossible for, let's say, Taiwan Semiconductor Corporation, which is #1 in the world, to even sell any form of technology to China. So as we proceed, the Philippines should try to embrace again the friend to all, learn from both, learn from everybody, learn from not just the top two, go to Singapore, go to Hong Kong, do what I did. I learned from everybody. Thank you.
For media who have questions, just raise your hands and we'll also priority your questions. If not, we'll go with the advanced questions. We also have friends from DTI and the economic agencies. Please ask your questions in the chat box for those who are in Zoom.
I'll just have like a few more questions from the Zoom earlier. The next questions will be from me. Okay, for the two of you first, and then I will go to Sec and Sir George. Okay, so I think you mentioned about semiconductors, we know this. So now, to capitalize further on that question, what are the challenges for the Philippines for us again, to better capitalize on this Asian development perspective? Okay, I'll start with you since you have this.
Challenges of the Philippines, you mean, or challenges of China? Okay. Well, as I mentioned, if
sorry, before we semiconductors in themselves are foundational technologies. I cannot advance AI without a solid semiconductor. I cannot continue machine learning without a really advanced semiconductor. I cannot create even better smartphones, better GPS without those semiconductors. And with the regulations in place, the United States has made it difficult for China to get the technology, not for free, but for by purchase. And without that, how can they advance their own local markets? That I feel is the number one challenge for China. Now, looking at how embargoes have worked in the past, especially with what they did to Cuba, I have a feeling that China will find a way to advance their own markets, regardless of the effect of the embargo. The trade embargo on Cuba, for instance, rendered no imports or exports to Cuba for any motor vehicles. They developed highly skilled mechanics who ended up to now, those cars are still running. The cars you see in the movies, the 1950s, 60s sedans, are still running in 2023. So the shift would be, if I cannot get access to the technology, I will upskill my human resource. And that may be the way that China will continue its advancements to the technological race.
Actually, that's the fear and the opportunity. No, it looks like the world is being divided, and you can see the lines getting darker and bigger. And will the Philippines be forced to choose? Maybe we can ask that question. Did you want to say something on the education sector, Dr. Arlene? On the Philippine, the challenges in the Philippines in being able to better capitalize on the China's economic reforms.
I think, yeah, I just want to reiterate what Attorney Pusan said. I think it's better to, well, we learn more and we can find more opportunities if we place in a more difficult context, like for example, what happened in Cuba. So I think, well, we have a lot of our human resources, and we all know that we are exporting human resource from any parts of the world. And I think it's better to a very good starting point, springboard to capitalize on human resources here in the Philippines. And we know very well that many of the Filipinos, they are really good. Okay, and of course, I just want to mention the advance when it comes to advancement of technology. I think it's about time that we can learn from China or collaborate with them when it comes to the use of technology, especially in education. We want to advance our education. We want to achieve quality education. But how? Experiencing this new normal, we need more advanced technology in order to deliver quality education, not just here in the rural area, but also in the not just in the urban, but also in the rural area. And how can we do that? I think we can learn from them.
Arlene got her PhD from one of the top universities in China. So maybe you can ask for some examples later on. Now on this divide, will the Philippines be forced to choose? Do we have to choose, or can we balance the two giants? Mr. George C. and then Senator Kit Tatad.
I'd like to give a little input on the education side. No, the Chinese system is different from the American system. The American system, in terms of training, is actually excellent. We have to say it's, having been to both sides, it's excellent. That's why people all over the world go and study there. But there are two different technologies and aspects coming up. And so if the US is restricting the technologies and things that can go to China, but we have to remember that China has focused so much on this education that in the PISA exams, the top 4 or 5 slots are Chinese in the whole world. So the top 4 and 5 and top
Chinese provinces.
Chinese provinces, not the country. And 80% of the top are East Asian countries. No, so that cultural factor is very important because we look at two things. One is in terms of the advancement of China. China has more than 1.5. They have more than 3 times the number of graduates of the U.S. and then more of them are in STEM courses than the US as a percent. So they are going to catch up. It's inevitable, but it can be slowed down by these restrictions. But what we fear is that if because the restrictions are become so tough, nagkakaroon ng sama ng loob, later on, galit yan. So, it might not be as open. We cannot expect as open society later on. So, tayo naman sa Philippines, we have much to learn. China has many things that the US there's a practicality of decision making that's in China, in Asia, that is no longer, nawala na sa US. US used to be very practical. Now they're very political. So we have to be very practical, but we cannot adopt this whether from US or from China if we are spending most of our time on consumption and pleasure. Because yung Pilipino, alam natin, as I was telling one of our interviewers earlier, are the smartest people in the world because all over the world, they're using Filipino scientists and finance people, analysts, even the US, many of the top companies use Filipinos to manage their finances. Pero what are we doing here? We are weak on implementation and execution on the ground. So our people have to spend more time, use this technology to learn from YouTube, from the best in the world, from YouTube, from whatever sources. No, you don't need Harvard now. You don't need Stanford now. All of them are there. And I'm a Chinese by blood. I have a hard time understanding the language. I have a hard time understanding the systems. So if wherever we learn, but then the entrepreneurship system is very strong. So let's learn from that. And the only way to learn from that is if we're going to spend time on it. So we're looking at these countries and what the politics are and whatever. We want, if we can, help our people to spend less time on politics and spend more time trying to learn how to be productive, not learn from everybody. And we're saying we're now looking between China and US, but the predictions are in 10 years, India will be the number 3 largest economy in the world and possibly might even surpass the US soon and then possibly surpass China. So the opportunities are all there. It doesn't matter which country it is. The markets are there. It's up to us.
We want to show some IDSI research also. Can we have a projector? There might be some brightness. What Mr. George mentioned about the US-China scientific and R&D data shows the shift actually going to Asia. Do we have the projector, please? So this is all available online, no? And as Mr. George said, we are beneficiary also of the US research. These are all from US think tanks and technology studies, no? So global chip patents as of 2020, 2022, China is at 55% of the global patents in the world, no? 3.6 million versus 3.3 million patents applied. Robotics applications at 25,000 or 35%. Infrastructure investment, China spends about 8, I think it went down a little bit during the pandemic to 5%, but 5 to 8% on infrastructure investment versus 2.3%. High-speed rail, China has almost 27,000 kilometers, more than the US and EU combined. Unfortunately, our rail projects were a bit delayed recently. Hopefully, we can get that back on track. STEM students, China produces 4.7 million STEM students a year versus 500,000. But to note also, before this US-China trade war, there were about 350,000 Chinese students in the US spending over $13 billion. No, so it is a interplay, multifaceted relationship. Of course, now there's some challenges to this. This is also the 2018 PISA, what Mr. George was sharing earlier, Beijing, Shanghai, Jiangsu, and Zhejiang. And interestingly, the new premier was the leader of these 2 or 3 provinces. And we have Singapore there, Macau, Hong Kong, etc. This is reading, mathematics, and science. I think this one explains fairly the same. And then, of course, in Silicon Valley, majority are Asians and also Indians. This one also helps gives perspective. This is an economist graphics to show that each of the provinces of China is actually equivalent to a GDP country in the world. No, and this is perspective gives us a market perspective that we can have a tremendous opportunity. We don't even have to look at China as a macro or a one piece. No, we can look at it by province in terms of market strategies for our businesses. On the population side, we have Philippines, 100 plus million, is as big as the province of Guangzhou. So we can share these slides and studies with you later on. So we'll go back to Senator Mr. George.
Yeah. Yes. Just for perspective, these are statistics on population, but these are also the reasons why the US is very concerned. And they should be very concerned if they wanted to be number one. But if they just want a multipolar world where everyone lives together, because by nature the population is several times of the US, so why should they expect it to always be behind? No, so if you're going to be fair about it, then it shouldn't be that you have to be number one. You just have to have your place in the sun. But the objective here, we're seeing that with the number of graduates not only being several times, 10 times that of the US, but the number of STEM graduates as a proportion being also much higher, that means the number of people involved in sciences is higher. And we might say that's for education. And it is true by most measures that the US has the highest quality, average quality yet in the major institutions. But by several measures, the catch-up is already there, because in terms of research papers, the number of PhD research papers of an international quality has been surpassed by China has surpassed the US already 4 or 5 years ago. But they have another criteria. How often are these research papers referred to by others, which is an indication of the quality. So the China was way behind, even though they had already higher number of papers. The reference by third parties is like a tenth. But as of last year, even by US statistical surveys, the Chinese papers are now number one, including in reference. No, so this is just to it from this, not just from this, also coming up fast. Thank you.
Oh, wait. Yes, sir.
I want to ask Senator Tatan. Having been a senator of the realm, sir, do you think there is a possibility of an Ukraine thing coming in here with Taiwan, with the Taiwan state now being disrupted by the entry of Chinese warships, of US warships and everything? And what will be the effect of this? Because I don't know if I can ask this speculative question. What do you think drove President Marcos Jr. to flip from his foreign policy before?
Well, that's quite a shift, Lito, no? But just to go back a little to the original question, I think we're moving so fast that although I have a feeling everything has been said and that we have learned everything from what has been said, I don't really know exactly at what point we are. What is the exact question we need to answer? No, in the beginning, Mao time, you didn't have Chinese PhDs in Oxford, Harvard, etc. It was a conscious decision of the Chinese leadership to send scholars to the West to learn everything from the West. They have done that, and I think they have surpassed their teachers. So, for me, I mean, what are we to learn from that? As a developing country, exposed to the West, we need to try to learn everything that must be learned by the people who must learn them. Deng Xiaoping should be able to put that in a more colorful statement, but I don't have to do that. So we learn what we need to learn, what we can learn by sending all those people that need to be sent. Ira, no? Young guys like Ira. Now to go back to go now to Lito's question. I am no longer in government. I'm a retired or semi-retired public servant who has to look after so many grandchildren and who has to spend the rest of his life dreaming of peace. Peace. No one wants to talk about peace. Everyone wants to talk about war. That's why I was so happy, as I said, when I heard Bongbong Marcos say our foreign policy is to be a friend to all and an enemy to none. I've never been an advocate for the US or for China. I've always spoken for my country, for the Filipinos. But I never liked the idea of being on one side against another. And this competition between the rising power and the dominant power, as some experts would like to put it. I'd like to be in the middle, trying to pull all the forces together to advance peace. It is the most difficult, almost unimaginable undertaking. But this is the only rational course. We have to survive as a race, as a species. Now, as I said, and I have to repeat it all over again, we need a restatement of the Philippine foreign policy at this stage after EDCA. Because the EDCA, according to Austin, the Pentagon chief, is intended to be used in a possible war with China over Taiwan. And what are we to Taiwan? This is the basic question. In 1975, we recognized the People's Republic of China policy or the One China policy of the PRC, which recognized Beijing government as the one in charge of all of China. Now, we are not saying anything about that, but we have allowed U.S. forces inside our military bases to be prepositioned there for possible use in the war with China on Taiwan. How did it happen? How did we get to have the equivalent of American bases, because these are actually bases, except for name, inside our Philippine military facilities? We don't have a statement from government at all, neither before, now, or for the future. So as a senior citizen with so many posts to look after, to worry about, I have to ask, please, Mr. President, please restate your foreign policy so that we can articulate our support or our opposition to it. This is the least that we deserve as your people, as among the 31.6 million for this administration in the last election.
Thank you, Secretary. So we've made another shift, and I will go along this shift. Okay. As we all know, and we also heard it in the Senate with Senator Amy Marcos, And I have to also say hello to Miss Sas Rogando here. I think I also heard you say this. Um, China, as we heard earlier, has been focusing on development. It's development of their country, welfare of the people, and the people across the region. I feel like it is my understanding that they have been this way, as history has also shown us. On the other end, the other side always cites humanitarian reasons, disaster risk reduction, right? So again, where do Filipinos position themselves with this? Maybe Sas, you can say something.
Sasso, just a bit of a background. Studied, got her master's, and taught in a Maastricht University in the Netherlands. She has over 1 million followers on Facebook, and she was invited by the Senate Foreign Relations Committee to be a resource expert on EDCA. And our national security agencies also consult her as a civilian advisor. But before I give her the mic, we want to shift also after this to the press con of Li Qiang and President Xi Jinping's speech, no, on the closing of the National People's Congress. So I think actually that was a good question on the other aspects that we can link and capitalize on China's economic reforms. Thank you.
Hello, good morning. My name is Sas. I think, well, what I notice is that there's so much ambiguities and lack of clarity of what's actually happening in our region. Actually, last week I met, well, not just me, but several of us on social media met Senator Amy. I actually asked her, ma'am, can you please hold a Senate hearing on the security situation of our region? Because it's not really being talked about in mainstream media. So what we're seeing right are a lot of half truths and really poor analysis and misinformation about what's going on. For example, the Taiwan issue. You know, Taiwan is part of China. You know, it's part of the territory of China, and we've always known that for a long time. Even the United States, in its policy towards China, towards Taiwan, it says that it will never recognize the independence of Taiwan. So if it's like Taiwan is not independent, what is it? You know, I think we should start asking American officials when they come here in our country, especially our media. But what I notice is that nobody's really asking them and to clarify, you know, these ambiguous and not there and not here, you know, pronouncements. And then second, about the question of Pia, where do we place ourselves here? I think you know, I want to be optimistic, but I think I'm more becoming pessimistic by the day. I don't think we have much say anymore about what's going on in terms.
We will have the speakers stand up because the media in the back is difficult for them to see. We'll ask the speakers to stand up.
Yeah, I think.
Thank you.
No, I think we don't have much say anymore because when you have foreign bases in your country, it means that you have already surrendering a lot of room for maneuver for your foreign policy. You know, even our friends from China know this because they have been colonized and occupied by different powers in their history. That's why they will not allow any foreign powers occupying their territory because they know that when foreign powers occupy your territory, then you know you're surrendering something to them already. Okay, and then so where do we position ourselves here? I think we will have to go back to the original foreign policy of the president, which was a mere continuation of the previous president, President Duterte, friend to all, enemy to none. And in world history, the United States had that foreign policy before it launched its imperial war in 1898. Because before, the United States was just a neutral power. So what did they do? The United States, during their that long history, they just traded with everyone. They didn't side with the foreign powers quarreling in Europe. But now, we wanted to have that kind of foreign policy, but we are not being able to fully realize it because the United States is always there behind our back and directing our policy as their little brown brother. I think it's not a secret. And I think even Senator Tata would know this, that the United States has a really huge influence in our military and foreign policy establishment. That's an open secret to everyone.
Okay, we will get back on the foreign policy front. We wanted to return to the economic and development. And of course, if you want to follow more, SAS is very active on social media. Follow for the motherland. And it was interesting because Senator Kitata told me he was reading SAS's blogs, and blogs was actually reading Senator Kit Tata's articles. So knowledge has no age limit, and we hope to learn from everybody. Going back to Pia's question earlier, Li Qiang mentioned several fronts where it will focus on technology innovation, academic, and people-to-people development. We want to go back to that on what are the challenges do you see China faces in achieving this, given the geopolitical and there's also a population demographic situation in China. There's environmental issues. Mr. George C. Or any of our experts, Senator Kitata, you directly engage with Chinese in your term as a minister. Can you share some of your experiences? You were mentioning before that Philippines was actually one of the first, if not the first ASEAN country to recognize PRC.
You are the first.
Yes. Can you share a bit of that? We also have some of our diplomat friends here. I don't know if they're allowed to share. We also advocate our ASEAN operation, so we can discuss that as well. Go ahead, Senator.
That is in 75. And in 75, China was still growing population-wise to become the largest, most populated country in the world. The demographic transition was in China's favor. Today, I think the one problem of China is the declining age group China.
That's why the robotics patents have multiplied.
Yes. And since the time of Robert Malthus, we have been engaged in this debate. How can the world continue to grow if so many people are falling from the ranks through death and not by natural causes and others, and we were being bothered by the theory of overpopulation for so long. That's because we are supposedly overpopulated. We could not solve our poverty problems. Now this has reversed. The book by Philip Boring tells us that we are on the sunnier side of life because we have a much younger population. The median age is 23 point something or 26 something, while China, in spite of its 1.4 billion people, so many are old and aging.
Not only China, Japan and our
Yes, but,
East Asian neighbors.
I'm talking
Yes.
the largest country as far as population is concerned. That because of this demographic problem, in spite of its fast economic growth for so long, it will begin to have serious economic problems. So this is the one important insight for all the scholars. The value of a young population in a country, whether large or small. And I think they have proved the point in our favor. Okay. I used to sit in pro-life conferences where we were attacked because of our population growth. Now I'm being congratulated by all those people who used to attack us because of our population growth.
Demographic dividends. Can the Philippines capitalize on our demographic dividends and maybe
Yes.
opportunities?
The demographic opportunities is in two directions. One is in several directions, in two directions primarily. All our East Asian neighbors. But why do we have to keep sending our nurses and workers abroad? Don't we have the capacity to build? If Thailand could do it, if Singapore can do it, why can't we do it? That's because partly I think our legislators have to understand business because they're trying to protect the local professions, but they're actually hurting the overall system. So we can be bringing them here or we can be sending our people outside. Better to bring them here, number one. Number two is the young people coming up and becoming wealthier, something that business has to understand and the Filipinos have to understand is that people are willing to spend more on what they like than what they need. They don't spend on like our maids before. They will not spend on they say they don't have money for their brothers and sisters to study, but they have money to vote on their cell phone and for their cell phone every month, right? So this is something true. They will spend on what they need when they're about to die. They will spend all the money on medicine, but what they need to study, to discipline, to what it is not worth what people spend. They will spend on their pleasure. So they will spend more on that pleasure, on that concert, on that boyfriend. So that's another big opportunity because Filipinos are such good entertainers. So we can be providing that. But then again, we have to make the laws and the logistics possible for it. So these are two possible demographic dividends for the Philippines, not just in Asia, but also around the world. No? Yes.
Thank you. We'll go back to that on the RCEP. How can we take advantage of RCEP? First, the education and technology sector. Education. I'll go back to that.
Okay.
On the education sector.
To continue what Senator Tatad said and Sir George C. Actually, yes, the population is very young, and we see a great potential. Unfortunately, we keep on sending workers, scholars abroad, but the problem is how can we keep them come back here in the Philippines and serve the country? That's the biggest challenge. Yes, we keep encouraging those people to come back. Unfortunately, do we have enough support system to provide for them? That's a big question mark. Another thing, yes, China, Japan, South Korea, they're aging population. So why not capitalize on the human resource of the Philippines, not just sending Filipinos to serve as global slave? We need to keep them here and we need to keep enough support system for them. It's not just trying to encourage them to, okay, come back and serve her here. Unfortunately, there are many scholars who want to be here, but they feel marginalized and devalued. How can we address this kind of issue when it comes to serving the scholars in their country? Well, we are the largest, population using the social media like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and we learn so much from
number one user of porn, according to Pornhub.
Yung na nga banggitin. So what what's the benefit of having this kind of advantages and disadvantages? I think we need to look for how can we take advantage of a lot of opportunities coming from the outside and coming from the inside. I think I'll agree. And also the disaster risk reduction. In 2022, we are top one, first, the top country when it comes to disaster. So what we are doing now, disaster is a very problem. It's not just it's not just a political, but at the very most, it's a very economic problem. We are not doing well when it comes to economy because we are ranked one. We experience pandemic, and on top of the pandemic, volcanic eruption, typhoon, earthquake, and everything.
We'll go back to that because
To look
yeah.
into. Thank you.
We will go back. But just to add, no, we also give credit where credit is due. The Philippine government also had a reasonably successful Balik Scientist program where I know personally friends from abroad returned because they saw the economic dynamism that was happening in the Philippines. Number one, in UP, UP Diliman, there was also build. So I was there for 6 years. Nag-overstay kasi tayo, masyado nag-enjoy. But I hardly see one or two buildings being in the last 6 years. Every block in the University of the Philippines, Diliman, had a new building set up. No, so I think there are these opportunities coming. No, so we want to.
I just want to answer the Balik Scientist issue. Yes, they really want to serve. Unfortunately, when it comes to technology, they don't have and limited technology to use here in the Philippines. I hope we can get those kind of technology that our Balik scientists could use here in the Philippines.
That's right. So, we know China and our friends from ASEAN, Singapore, Indonesia are also ready to help. Go ahead, Attorney Ira. Can you also tie it up a little bit with technology, maybe ARTA, on what were the business challenges, and then we'll go to Pia.
I have to say it, Austin. Okay. Just to give everybody the direction. China also says that they are trying to put policies in place. I think this is where you should start if you're going to go into the art and all these things. What kind of policies are we looking into in the next, let's say, 5 years? Right? This is very, very important. Well, another thing they're saying is that they have a very strong developmental foundation. We're talking technology, we're talking education. So the Chinese economy, in that sense, because of all that, is stabilizing. They are saying that. That's what they were saying earlier, right? So when it comes to the young people, again, technology and education, just to put everything into perspective before we get into this, Arta, because we need the policies that will set the direction, okay? They're saying that the young people are entering into the workforce, with talent, a lot of talent and a lot of development in the making. So when it comes to education and technology, how do you see development in terms of connections? Okay, you have to look at that because education plays a very important role in bilateral relations, right? So again, we have the values, we have the skills, and possibly maybe because in terms of technology as well, we can look at joint educational training. So before we go into this, Arta, the policies, right?
Great question. You want to add or follow up?
We had a brownout. Just a while back, we had a brownout. Now, we encourage Balik scientists to come here, but when their first problem is energy, what happens? We want to encourage foreign inventors to come in, and yet we have so far the highest energy price in Asia, higher than Japan. How can we move economically when we have this thing to consider, Point.
Ang dami. Kanina RCEP.
Disclaimer, we have government people watching you via Zoom, no?
Sige, the first question was there something about demographic dividend. And this is probably a more business-minded approach, but I would hope that the Philippines, as a friend to all, enemy to none, would try to engage all the countries, especially China, in that sort of sense. Before China really opened up, the test market for Western products and services was Hong Kong to see if it would succeed, and then they would enter, if allowed, and to prosper within mainland China. Now that China is facing so many other external factors in terms of their technology, their products, their services, their softwares, I would invite them to do the reverse with the Philippines. And our 110 million people, the largest number of social media users on Facebook, spends more time online than any other nationality in the world. Use us, engage with us as your testing center before you launch your new softwares, your new AIs to the rest of the Western world. Why? We're still Asians at heart. We're still geographically very strategic in terms of where the Philippines is located, Pearl of the Orient, whatever. We're still Asians, but we have that long-standing cultural Western indoctrination. Our educational system and our form of government is still very westernized.
Policy linkages.
Policy linkages. Well, you were saying how to get them back into the Philippines. Well, the easiest way to do it,
What do we need in policy terms to take advantage of what's happening in Asia?
we still need more of our talent to learn from the best practices overseas. And the easiest way to make sure they come back is to put it in the scholarship application contract, what they did with me. After Shivning, after Hong Kong, Singapore, the US, you have to stay in the Philippines for a period of what? 2 years. Otherwise, you will pay back what they spent on you. The question is, that's just one person. That's just me. What about everybody else who has to learn? Then there's a need for more opportunities for more talent to study overseas. And that's the only way to do it, to make sure that they contribute. Well, you cannot force them to work in a certain industry, but you force them to come back to their home country.
Just to add a plug in, Philippines-China Friendship Club is a club founded by Filipinos who are studying in the top universities in China. And when Dr. Arlene and myself and Rafael were there, we were in programs that were completely taught in English. Our classmates were from Europe, from the US, from Southeast Asian countries, and many African countries also. It's interesting because Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand had thousands of students studying all over China. The Filipinos, we had about 100. So about 300 in the whole China. No, but in Beijing alone, Thailand had thousands of Thai students. So there's a lot of catching up. But we also help not only on research and studies, but we also help on the ground. So we did a talk with TikTok, and they actually said that in the Philippines, most of our users are interested in entertainment, in mga sexy ladies. But in Indonesia, in Singapore, in other countries, they use it for educational purposes, learning skills, learning how to do things. So that's an interesting trend also. So we'll go to Mr. George C. Maybe could connect to RCEP.
RCEP is actually difficult because the government is not necessarily wrong. I'd like to backtrack a bit. In terms of bringing the students back home, first we have to give them opportunities to study and experience abroad. That is not as necessary today because they can see everything that they need to see. They can get the best instruction in the world through YouTube and so it's not as important. But if given the opportunity to study abroad and you have a contract for them to come back, then that's good if they follow it for 2-3 years. And then they have to go where they make the best income and have the best opportunity to learn more. So what we really need is more entrepreneurship, no? Whether by those people who are studying or by others to create sufficient income here na lumaki ang negosyo enough that they can have a fighting chance in terms of income and lifestyle if they stay here. Without that entrepreneurship, people will always keep going abroad. No, having been in manufacturing and trading ourselves, it is you have to be open to it if you are at least attaining a certain efficiency. You don't have to be the most efficient. So if we are a purely consumer society, if you open to RCEP, it is going to damage our country. I mean, I am a promoter of RCEP, but we have to be practical. You don't have to be the best. You have a certain level, you have a value added, you can capture part of the production chain. It doesn't have to be in manufacturing. Maybe you have manufacturers and you capture the tourism side of the business or the education or the medical services side of the chain, then open up. But if you don't have that ability, then you spend time and build up your capability. This open market thing is nonsense. No country world except Singapore maybe and Hong Kong built up their economy through an open market. None. Everybody started out by protecting the market. Everybody. No, so this is total nonsense. That you study abroad, they'll teach you that in the US. It's not true. Give a single example. There's none. So, but if you're a country that is not going to be able, because we have been in manufacture, we've been manufacturing in different countries in the world, so we understand what happens. The Philippines used to be the number one investor in Taiwan, no? When Taiwan was not industrialized, it was Japan and then the Chinese from the Philippines. So if we can build that, if we cannot build that, then we should open up soon, because then maybe some people can think of how to convert the opportunities. Because if you don't have cheap inputs, you cannot do outputs. Then you're not competitive. If your child, you want them to become a doctor, maybe you tell them to spend 3 or 4 years, they might get convinced. But if they're never going to be convinced anyway, just let them go early. They'll find their place.
Mr. George, one question was on the power, the high prices of power. Can
Yes,
we
we
still
can't do anything about it anymore because it's not in the Philippine culture to correct it. it's not. It's never going to happen. You keep hoping it will never happen. There are areas that you don't need high power costs. The world is open today. As I said, entertainment. You know how much the tickets they're spending per ticket for those foreign entertainers.
the concerts?
The concerts. They're spending from 15 to 100,000 per ticket. In the Philippines.
Foreign performers in the Philippines.
In Singapore or in Thailand, it is only half the cost. So it makes sense to. So that means this is what our culture. Our people are spending money on things they have pleasure in, not what we need. And we're gonna try to change the culture. Just use the culture. Don't change it. Forget it.
We have about 10-15 minutes to go. We've already overextended our time. We will continue. This is an ongoing series, no? And we are also working with other topics, including culture, society, and technology as well. Chris?
Good afternoon, Chris Muna from Philippine News Agency. The top agenda of the new Chinese premier is to lead China's economic recovery from the pandemic. So how can the Philippines ride on that economic recovery of China, and what are the opportunities for the Philippines, especially the low-hanging fruits? Thank you. Austin.
Anyone?
Well, if the people, you have to immerse in the market you want to do. So that's part of the entrepreneurial culture. If we think we're going to sell to Japan, but everyone is now going to visit in Japan because it's so cheap now, right? So if they spend time in Japan, are you going to sell something to Japan? I don't know. No. So there are many good items we can sell to China. For instance, people have to spend time learning how they're going to sell to China. So we are going to say here, for instance, you have to go through trading groups first, because unless you have a big organization, you'll go there and open your company and then you'll file all the papers and everything. It's not that easy. It's not that easy. It might be easier for you to go around Southeast Asia. So do Southeast Asia. So we do what's practical. We have an objective. And then from there we go elsewhere. For instance, here, we're doing trading. We trade through traders here that traded to Southeast Asia. They take care, those with relations with China in Thailand or Malaysia, they're the ones who bring our goods to China. Otherwise, we have to spend millions and millions and don't know how to. They already have the distribution. The model which you use, whether for education or for business or for life, you have to have viable models. We have to be studying that. We're not studying that. We're studying how to dance and how to sing and how to. I mean, it's fun and we can make a business out of it. But if you're not making a business out of it, then these are ways. There are many. Low hanging fruit is one is fruits. China is buying so much fruits. The durian, they're buying hundreds of millions of dollars of durian.
From Vietnam and Thailand.
From Vietnam, and hundreds of millions of dollars. And why are the Filipinos not organizing it? They're willing to buy more bananas. Why are there no increase in banana plantations? Because we have land reform. Because we have land reform. So there are many things we have to take care of, the laws and the logistics.
We also have policy and national legislation talks, no? So we can engage with our partners as well there. Going back, Mr. George, you had a recent article on the benefits that we gained from China in the last 6 years of Duterte's independent foreign policy, because there's still many experts, quote unquote, saying maybe Duterte was the first one. Can you give us some of the benefits?
There are the obvious benefits, no? There are very clear ones. Those who travel in the country, you see all those roads and bridges. Those roads and bridges allowed malls and stores and fast foods to be created all over the country. It used to be only the urban centers. That made everyone benefit from the increase in land prices. Every single person of your family, everywhere, at least double to triples. That means the value of the Philippines went up at least 2 to 3 times under him. Number two, that road made us viable. We're being considered as manufacturing again because at least it made us the logistics viable again. Not very good, but viable. Why do I say not very good? We are practitioners in manufacturing. If you are in Vietnam, you can make 5 trips a day. In the Philippines, on a bad day, you can make only 1 trucking trip a day. Usually 2, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. So how many trips can you make? So that many trips tells you, if you open a factory, how many turnarounds you can make, how many visitors you can have. So because of that logistic, that makes the Japanese rail worth it. But that Japanese rail, that girl was just asking me or somebody again, they don't understand. No, Japan has only 0.5% interest rate. 0.5% interest versus 2% in China at the time versus 4% from the World Bank and the US. But that 0.5%, but the price is more than double of the Chinese rail. So I give you a very cheap interest, but I give you a very high price. So we are so smart, right? We have so many finance people, but they are not explaining this difference to us. And so you have to understand things are interrelated. So that's one. And the other is China gave us arms in the ISIS rebellion when the US blocked it. If not, we could be one of those countries 20 years at war, right? During the pandemic, they gave us vaccines when the US banned vaccines from anywhere in the world. They banned the export, and even the raw materials they banned. They came in with the vaccines only 5 months later, and that vaccine was about to expire already, right? So, and then there are also the if we notice during the pandemic period, we had the Wi-Fi, the work from home. We could do that work from home because when Duterte came in, remember, he threatened Globe and PLDT. If you don't shape up, I'll shut. And then if you check, both of them are using 90% Chinese companies to put up the telco towers. And they tried to hire as many as they can. And so in that 6 years, that's the CIA. No. The coverage more than doubled and the speed more than doubled. If you notice, your cell phones keep getting napuputo lagi before, but now it's not. It's hardly as much. So that's part of the infrastructure put up by Chinese. And when they put up that infrastructure, the companies told us they wanted to hire more Filipino engineers, but they couldn't get enough. Even if they hired, it takes them 2 years to train. That means our curriculum is not fit. It takes them 2 years to train. So we could have done even faster if we had the people. So there's so many opportunities. I think that's enough to say that when people are saying that investments are not coming in or the help is not coming in, they keep blocking. The same people who ask the questions will ask again. They're not taking down the notes. So it's up to you guys and up to us to bring the story, the information out. Everything IDSI is willing to give the documents, the agencies that they can verify with, so that the Filipinos can make good decisions for Filipinos.
Last questions. So we give her like Ms. Kathy. Uh, whose chairman, Mr. Butch Valdez, was also our frequent resource expert who left us about a month ago. So we also honor his memory today. Ms. Cathy Cruz. And then 1 minute closing remarks from each of our experts. What can we look forward to? Starting from the youngest member of the panel, Senator Tatad, after Cathy's question.
Thank you. Well, of course, I am aside from being a anchor in this XL every Sunday, 7 to 9, ang ating Katipunan, which actually the show of Professor Valdez. I'm also the Secretary General of the Katipunan ng Demokratikong Pilipino. It's a national political party. Okay, so I'm wearing different hats. But anyway, actually, this is actually a statement just to summarize, and I'm looking for ano ba yung move natin forward. Alam natin na nangyayari lahat to. Well, Philippines today, Filipinos are talented. Sabi nga ni Ma'am kanina, si Balik Scientist. Resourceful and smart, yet opportunities are limited. Some government agencies like DOST is doing all means to promote STEM, to produce professionals like scientists, engineers, architects, researchers, etc. China took 1 generation to develop soft and hard infrastructure. Philippines today, public utilities are given away to oligarchs. We have laws actually and policies like IPIRA and among others to stop government to protect the Filipinos.
We'll have to go to the question. Okay. Sige, thank you.
There's goal is to develop or become a producer. Us, our leaders before, until today, except PRRD, is moving towards service economy. Today, Filipino lives are deteriorating. Let us not forget the solution of a long war in Europe. It is the Treaty of Westphalia, moving towards economic development. So meaning, saan ba tayo papunta? Sa gera ba o pagpapaunlad? Just like what China is doing right now and pushing for the Silk Road or the Belt and Road Initiative. Tayo bilang nasa ASEAN, napakahalaga natin sa buong mundo. Tayo yung daanan ng lahat ng mga bansa, yung mga states na yan. So moving forward, gusto ko lang malaman what will be our nakikita nyong government move dapat or initiative from your end, from education, from your sector, from businessmen, on what you will do. Kasi may gumagawa na ng mga rallies pushing for peace and tinutulak ang agricultural development natin. That's all.
So, I think the question aligns also with my question earlier. Closing remarks, 1 to 2 minutes. What can we expect for the country? Where we headed? what we look forward to. Senator Kit Tatad, would you like to have the mic first?
Well, I think I tried to say that earlier, that the central question now is how to achieve peace. Do we have a plan for peace, a central plan for peace, initiated or organized by the most important economic power in the world today? I was hoping I'd hear that from the press conference of Premier Li Qiang. I did not. They're all very cautious in treading the lines laid out earlier there, I think. That we learn a lot from the economic discussions. And I think we should do it more often than we have done so far. But I think ultimately you cannot escape the question that I have raised. We need a modern technology for peace.
Just to add, no, because the premier is administrative, more national issues. The foreign minister last week's speech is also a good materials to address that. Herman?
Actually, the answers to Senator Tatad's question was in President Xi Jinping's speech this morning. So unfortunately, we have no more time to review that.
There was a media who asked just to cover this for those who came late. Why we covered Premier Li Qiang's rather than the Xi Jinping, because Xi Jinping's is very broad and all-encompassing, comprehensive. So we can maybe schedule another discussion for that. But we wanted to focus on economic and development, which is what our country needs and the expertise of our experts. Now, so we have Dr. Arlene, Ira, and Mr. George C., who will also do the closing remarks as IDSI president. Thank you very much for attending. We will have a small gift. Hindi natin ginawang raffle because Mr. Carlos Chan of Oishi, who's our partner for today's event, gave enough gift certificates. So we'll priority the media first because they came from far away. And then if we have extras, we'll share them with friends also. There are gift certificates for Jayco that actually came from Indonesia. And we heard from our Indonesian friends. Jayco is very famous, very popular, beating all the Western brands in donuts and coffee in Indonesia. No? So there's a lot to learn also from our neighbors. Without further ado, Dr. Arlene, Ira, and Pia.
Okay, my last statement, I think from education perspective again, we have this education and development. Development on what? Development in economy, development in politics. Well, it's good that we have this attempt to join the PISA. We know our place now. It's a good attempt that we have this K-12 curriculum in the past 10 years. It's another good attempt. I think I see the beauty and the goodness in every initiatives that our government or the previous government accomplish. Whether the result is not good, whether the result is not so good, I think it's a very good learning experience for all of us. Now that Sir George C. We need to revisit the curriculum. It's not fitted to entrepreneur. It's not fitted to the talents. It's not fitted to the technology. So I think the things that we have done in the past 10 years or 20 years, it's a good attempt, but we need to do more. And it should start in education. Because I think when it comes to technology, imagine how long do we need to train our people? When it comes to entrepreneur, how long do we need to train our people? And when it comes to economy, how long do we need to train that? Only education could address a portion, or maybe if not 100% of that issue, more than 50%. We can achieve more through education. Thank you, po.
Hirap naman sundan nun. How do I follow that passionate statement when my topic is so boring? So yes, a final point. We mentioned earlier the challenges that China will face with the US embargoes. But you also see what China is going to do. They are not going to take it bending backwards. In fact, in this latest policy statement, there is a bureaucratic revamp of how the Ministry of Science and Technology, the Office for Intellectual Property will work and function. That is important because that tells me that when China will continue its technological advancements, whether it's frontier technology or choke point technologies, they will strengthen it through their own patent system. They will strengthen it by making sure the intellectual property is secured. And if on the point of choke point technologies, jet engines and other technologies, if the other countries are not able to sell their semiconductors to China, then China also has the patent that they will refuse to sell certain technologies to those countries. It becomes a negotiating tactic. Now, second, the bureaucratic revamp also included the creation of an office under the Ministry of Cybersecurity, if I'm not mistaken, to safeguard their data. Why? Because as we move forward in the 4IR, in terms of artificial intelligence and machine learning, what is more valuable than anything else is the personal data of 1.4 billion people. And I can have any app, any software learn from what has been collated in that 1.4 billion, 15% of the global population. That is the perfect test market for whatever I'm trying to do. What was the last point? Number 3, the Philippines as a opportunity to learn, to adapt, to be friends with everyone. When I was in China, when I was there with Rafael and Austin and everyone, this was 2015. And already I got the technological culture shock that everything was cashless. WeChat wallet, Alipay, Jiffabao were all functional. I could buy cinema tickets through the same app. And it took the pandemic to get GCash and PayMaya to similar levels. 6 years later. When I came back, I was giving speeches to IDSI and they were so surprised about the technologies. The QR code, which we hate today, was there already in 2014, 2013. So my point is, let's keep learning as they develop their next stages of technology so that we can also not be left behind. Because in terms of STEM, upskilling, reskilling, economic development, and peace, I think we just need to be friendlier to everybody and enemies to no one. Thank you.
I'm not gonna really get the last say because I'm going to like pass it to SAS again at some point. Yeah, because for me, as Sir George knows anyhow, I'm really an advocate for education. And I really believe, even if you're saying that it's so boring, your topic, whatever we learn needs to be translatable, right? And because I have a lot of young people who do get in touch, they are also teaching me about, telling me things like, we are going back to a bipolar system, and all these things. It's the way it used to be before. So that's why I told Senator Tata that maybe, sir, we can talk about this a bit, and SAS, you can put your input also, because if it's another important thing we have to remember about education is that we also need to know our roots, our history. That's so important if we really need to and want to move forward. So thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll just do a formal closing because there's another event, but our experts will stay. They haven't eaten lunch yet. So will give us a few 30 seconds, 1 minute closing, and then Mr. George will close it formally. And then again, thank you very much for our friends, Miss Joanne, the beautiful lady at the corner entrance. Please get your gift certificates from Jayco, courtesy of Carlos Chan of Oishi. Thank you.
I regarding the well, I think it's very I think it's very important to remember that we are not entering a bipolar world again. We're actually entering a multipolar world order. And all the emerging powers, the BRICS powers, BRICS plus powers, there's a talk that Saudi Arabia, Iran, even I think Nigeria would be joining BRICS. They all want a multipolar world order. And it does make sense why, for example, China, Russia, and all these powers want a multipolar world order. Historically, China flourished under a multipolar world order for the longest time of its history. There's only one power in the world that doesn't want a multipolar world order, and that's the United States. You cannot hear in their foreign policy pronouncements the word multipolar at all. It's not in their national security strategy. You cannot hear U.S. State Blinken say anything about the multipolar world order because it is not a word that they're familiar of. The United States is a very, very young power. And it only flourished under a bipolar world order and a unipolar world order. The multipolar world order is not familiar to them. But for the Philippines, we actually were flourishing under a multipolar world order for the longest time in our history. And our development got stunted because because of Western hegemony. So I think that's what we should remember of. That's and linking to what Pia said. That's why we have to remember our history. At what point in history the Philippines was actually flourishing? And the answer is very clear. It was when the Philippines was one of the linkages of trade in between Latin America and Asia. And that was actually the time that the global trade order was actually launched. And, China and Latin America are now completing the BRI, Belt and Road Project. And this is something that we should take advantage of because historically we were the link of Asia and Latin America. So to summarize, we have to study our history. We have to know what actually do we want, and as what Senator Tatan said, can we actually now have a real enunciation of what our foreign policy actually is and stick to it, because we keep on changing our foreign policy every 6 years. No country in the world would ever take us seriously. The United States have a long-term foreign policy, China, etc. And change it every 6 years. And we don't only change it incrementally, we change it as if we have a bipolar we are people with a bipolar disorder. So that's it.
Well, we want to thank all of you who came here. It just occurred to me when I was thinking, everything that needs to be said has already been said. And things are about to change. And people always wonder why things change if they're very sudden. But I attended a concert 2 weeks ago. Who knows Louis Ocampo? Alam mo niya, Louis Ocampo. He has this song, it's Tell Me, right? Who knows Tell Me? I don't know, very few pala. So it says, tell me what happened to make you change your mind completely. Diba? It's a super hit song. And he was saying that it was, he composed that song in half an hour. And it was a super hit song. And he turned something because his girlfriend had just suddenly broke up with him. He had a broken heart. So he wrote this in half an hour. So he turned something that's negative into positive. So maybe we will always keep doing that, no? And thank you all. Our roles is very important. in terms of disseminating this information, even though there's all this deluge of other information. It's okay. We just keep on doing. We're friends. We'll continue to eat out together. Thank you all. Thank you, Secretary, and all our speakers. Join us again.
Thank you also sa mga nanonood sa atin from our DTI friends and Filipinos also abroad. No? So thank you again. I will finally close our session today. Again, it will be a series, so hope to keep in touch and we'll have more sharing and insights from experts, young and old. Thank you very much. There's no food. Please get your. You can interview the experts personally for those who want to interview.
Thanks for a while back she was doing together. Take it together. Take it together.
Guys, marami pong food. Please get something to eat. Take a screenshot. Thank you. We don't have a picture yet.